Welcome to the Story and Critique Show. We're going to be reading fantasy, sci-fi, horror, thriller, memoir, and much, much more as we dig into stories from writers of the community. And I'll do a live reading and we'll do critiques together so we can help these writers really improve their story. Do you want feedback on your story? Then make sure to submit an excerpt right now. Down in the ticker below, send the title, story excerpt, and genre to my email, Kauffman at the-creative-ghost.com. Beautiful. And it's also down in the YouTube description as well. So we're going to be starting right now. Now, before we hop into it, if you're watching on the replay, I got you covered. Time codes are added at the end of the stream to help you jump to the part of the video that will bring you the most value. So whether you got a critique or whether you listen to a story that just sounds really, really cool, you can hop back to that and listen to it as many times as you want. Beautiful. And back by popular demand, we're going to be hopping back into the comment of the day game, the newly aptly worded comment of the day game. So how are we judging comments? I encourage you to comment. Bring as much feedback and as much positive critiques or thoughts as possible. I'm going to be judging comments based on cleverness, comedic value, and how much they're helping other writers. At the end of the stream, the most popular comments are going to be highlighted and they're going to be added to a ranking for all-time comments of the day for our Right Now community. So make sure you keep those comments coming. Make sure you drop as many comments, whether it's something funny or whether it's just something that really is going to help another writer. Beautiful. And if you're wanting to submit, here's the process. So once you submit your story to Kauffman at the-creative-ghost.com, I add up all the stories together. I set them up for this stream. Now, each story is going to be getting 20 minutes, 10 minutes for a reading and 10 minutes for a critique. I accept all story types, whether it's fantasy, sci-fi, thriller, horror, whether it's a story, whether it's a book format or a script format. All story types are welcome because what doesn't change in between formats is the story. We still have to create characters that sound awesome. We still have to build a world which sounds incredible. We still have to create dialogue which sounds engaging. So each story will be judged on those on that principle. Let me pull up the screen for you. So you can see here, I judge the guidelines on character development, world building, dialogue, plot, and structure. And if I highlight your story, it means nothing good or bad. It's just a way for me to keep track of my thoughts so that way I know what to touch upon when I go back to the critique. All right, perfect. And most importantly, if there's something that stands out to you during the critique, drop a comment. Let the writer know what you liked about it or what you didn't. Because if we're submitting our stories, we are entering this into the mindset that all feedback is good feedback as long as it's delivered in a way that is kind. So we are going to be getting into it. All right, let me just welcome to the stream Penelope. Ooh, Penelope Hartley writer. Glad to have you, my friend. And Vaughn, Fire with Fire and everything else. Vaughn is already coming out strong with a great comment, my friend. And who cares what Eli thinks? Welcome. Lewis, glad to have you in the stream. All right, my friends. So this first story that we have for you today is very, very exciting. I am super stoked to hop into it. We are starting off at the top of the stream with let me drop this. Reading number 1. Jezebel's Theater of Macabre Delights presents Act 1, Useful Idiots. So we are starting off with it looks like it's dark fantasy. And what we're going to be doing is this is actually going to be part of episode 1. So we're going to be providing feedback for the first episode of, I believe, a 10 episode series, a 10 episodic format. So this is going to be super cool. We're going to see what comes of it. I'm excited. Are you? All right, so I got 20 minutes on the clock. I am all set on my end. All right. And let's drop the ticker. Perfect. Okay. Jezebel's Theater of Macabre Delights presents Act One, Useful Idiots. You see a rustling behind the theater's curtain. Oof, there's a muffled voice. I know it's around here. Then, from between the curtains, an elegant woman stumbles onto the stage. She has long, loose waves of black hair and is wearing a tightly cinched velvet bodice of deep purple over a long, flowing skirt. She begins furiously brushing bits of dust off her skirt and muttering to herself until she looks up to see the audience awaiting her introduction. She gazes out across the theater, gives them a vexing smile, and begins to speak. Greetings, dear voyeurs of the marvelous, the sublime, the unnerving. Tonight, I, Jezebel, will unravel a spellbinding tale where a down on his luck lover boy stumbles into the enchanting clutches of a powerful wizard. Little does he know he is but a pawn in her grand design, a series of spells to open a portal to another dimension. Wait, was that a spoiler? The woman pauses to think, then waves the thought away. Anyway, as their romance blossoms, the stakes grow higher, and he must decide if he will be her tool or her undoing. Jezebel's Theater of Macabre Delights presents Useful Idiots. The woman vanishes, the curtains rise, and behind them you see a backdrop that looks eerily realistic begin to swarm around you. Episode 1. Life isn't a checklist. The early morning sun cast a golden shimmer over Chicago, bathing the skyscrapers in an otherworldly glow. The streets bulged, flush with the raw energy of a new day. Cars honked and squealed their tires. Fresh coffee wafted like God's perfume from nearby cafes. A young man, Tom, 23, freshly single, and newly unemployed, makes his way through the bursting sidewalks. His senses are assaulted by his steps, but his steps are in cadence with the violent rhythm of mid-morning chaos downtown. The staccato clatter of the elevated train mixes with the inconsequential chatter of pedestrians, and yet there are moments of serenity in the upheaval of urban life. The cool wind on Tom's face contrasts with the warm glow of the sun on his skin. The scent of blooming flowers from street planters mingles with the savory smell of food trucks preparing for lunch. Despite the sensory overload, Tom felt there was something comforting in the familiarity of it all. He needed comfort today. He turned to glance at his reflection in the large glass window of a shop called Chicago's Punwich. Our sandwiches are no joke, but our buns are fully loaded. The advertisement falsely proclaimed Tom had eaten there last Thursday evening. The sandwiches were good, but the puns failed to amuse him. Tom Smith was a handsome man. He had a strong jaw, a nose that was still charming despite having been broken due to a miscalculated crossbow pull, and blue eyes the color of a dependable summer sky. The famous Chicago wind swept his messy brown hair. His pressed white shirt covered a muscular chest, and neat khaki cargo trousers traded off at gleaming white sneakers. Tom was very proud of the way his pristine sneakers caught the sunlight. As he wove in and out of the bustling streets, the leather jacket folded across his arm felt like a relic of another life, a life of romantic evenings of heaving, sweaty embraces. Nights filled with spontaneous adventures, but impulse and spontaneity had always been Mandy's domain, not his. He was the wild card, and she commanded a fierce and willful energy that both fascinated and terrified him. Now, as he walked alone, Tom wondered if he would ever again have a life of spontaneous adventure. Death, he muttered to himself. At least death would be spontaneous, surely. And what was on the other side would certainly be a surprise to Tom. A mysterious, compelling surprise. Unlike, well, unlike Tom, who was neither compelling nor particularly mystical. You keep a recipe for mac and cheese on your counter, Mandy said the night she left. As she said it, he noted a tiny smear of mascara under her left eye. Her lip quivered as if she wanted to cry. Or already had. Tom shrugged. He hadn't known what to say except, so having the recipe on the counter is useful. The first ingredient is boiled water, Tom. Boiled fucking water. She pointed a finger with chipped blue paint on the nail at the recipe and huffed as if it were obvious where the fault lay. To Tom, it wasn't obvious, but something was off. Very off about her bringing it up. It smelled like a trap or something worse. He tried to play it cool. What's wrong with the boiled water? You need it to soften the noodles. He took off his glasses and furiously cleaned them. As Tom stared at Mandy, his vision blurred by the absence of his glasses. He felt a surge of frustration bubble up from a painful clenching in his stomach. It's just a recipe, Mandy. Why is that such a big deal? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. She looked at him, her eyes a mixture of sadness and exasperation and pity. She pitied him. Tom, it's not about the recipe. It's about you being so predictable. Life isn't a checklist. He practically spat the word checklist on the kitchen floor. Tom flinched over and over. Each word stung. Each one a tiny dagger she had pulled from the pocket of her cutoff denim skirt and grammatically flung them straight into his heart. Each word pierced his confidence and his predictability. And that was that. An hour later, Mandy dragged her little red suitcase behind her, stammered, Starman Zalbo, her fuzzy white teddy bear that had colored with markers one night when they felt rambunctious. Hitched a ride in the suitcase's pocket, even fat-faced Starmond seemed to pull a sour little frown at Tom's inability to act impulsively. After the door slammed, he boiled some water and thought about how he'd been more fascinated by her unpredictability than he had admitted. Maybe she was right, he said to the pot. That night, he let it boil dangerously close to the edge. As Tom walked downtown, he was caught in an infinite loop of regret, replaying her words like a broken record. Predictable, she said, and he scoffed at himself. Predictable! Tom! And he tripped over a broken flower pot, scuffing his gleaming white sneaker. Predictable! Predict! He knew he wasn't exciting, but being prepared and reliable accounted for something, didn't it? He couldn't understand why Mandy saw it as a glitch rather than part of his programming. Yet deep down, by where death lay, sleeping in everyone's fears, he wondered if he was missing something important that made this one life more than just a series of well-laid plans. Well, then what else could it be? What else could be useful? Making plans was useful. Hell, he had one now. Walk downtown, drink a cup of coffee, and look through the help wanted section of the paper. Poor Tom Smith. He'd had a streak of bad luck lately. The Monday after Mandy and Starmond left, his boss at Truckingham Palace had fired him. It wasn't his fault. He was told his position had become redundant. Could be done by computers, his boss had said. Tom glanced down at his white sneakers, gleaming in the morning light, and wondered, am I just a tool? Just a cog in the machine? He nearly fell over, trying to stop in time to avoid smashing a little green lizard that streaked under his feet on the sidewalk. When the creature made it to the gutter, it paused to whip its head around, showing off its darking gold eyes and a fiery orange throat. It licked its eye and then leaped into the sewer. Despite all of Chicago existing around him, Tom felt lonely. The emptiness gnawed at him, making each step in those almost bright white sneakers feel heavier than the last. Wow. All right, let's throw this up and reading. All right. What a really, really exciting excerpt. First off, I was very, very impressed by the character development, and I loved the overall vibe of the world. I felt one of the things that worked really, really well for this was you had the introduction, you have the introductory where the whole world takes place and it's on a stage. I've you see this format sometimes with a lot of like horror type shows, horror type movies and films where it's a story. It's kind of like an anthology story. That's essentially how it's being set up as. It's being set up as an anthology story, but you set up the vibe of it very, very well with this character with Jezebel as this very like darkly, strangely comedic type of character. And I love that in a page you do character development with her. You literally do you do a little character development with her. There's some things that I absolutely loved, right? So you see a wrestling band in the theater. So you're setting up the stage of the theater very, very well. You're setting up her description. She has long, loose waves of black hair and is wearing a tightly cinched velvet bodice of deep purple over a long flowing skirt. That's very descriptive and it's very, very straightforward. You give her an introduction to the audience. I think the one thing that might, I'm okay, this could be subjective. I'm like, what's the one thing that might be missing from this is a little bit more of the audience. You do a good job of setting herself. I'm clear on, I have a good idea of who she is, and we don't need a lot because it's just the intro. I might want a little bit more on what this theater feels like. Then from behind the curtains, yep, because you focus on her. Greetings, your voyeurs, the sublime, the unnerving. That's the thing. Her dialogue is very well done. And her dialogue does a magnificent job of pulling the reader into the story. And you also do foreshadowing, right? Little does he know, he is but a pawn in your grand design, a series of spells to open a portal to another dimension. Wait, was that a spoiler? Now, just from the dialogue, you think, okay, this is intentional. It's part of her like her shtick. She's kind of like this like very like mystical, kind of like creepy vibe. And I think what I want the woman pauses to think, then waves the thought away, right? This is suggestive that this is a recognition of this quote in the moment, and that this is actually foreshadowing for something far deeper into the story, which is excellent. Excellent, excellent. Because if we think of this story from a pure character development perspective, Jezebel is technically the protagonist of the story, at least in this type of story. So usually they're framed as anthologies, but technically they're Jezebel stories. So from the very beginning to the very end of the character arc, it's really how Jezebel is either growing from her retelling of the stories or how she learns from them. So I would say that is very, very well done. Absolutely love that. The one positive thing. Anyway, as there was you did a good job of leading into it. Yeah. And so once again, what I would do is I would just make this beginning a little longer. I want to see a little bit more description of the stage and the world. And you don't have to do a lot, but I think I want to get more of like, do you want the vibe of this to be like horror? Do you want the vibe of this to be fantastical? Do you want the vibe of this to be strange? Whatever vibe you want, you're getting towards it, but I need a little description on the environment, and maybe you could do some of the audience. I mean, I know you want the reader to feel like they're the audience. But yeah, that's how I would tackle it. But her dialogue is incredible. You have a very good sense of who she is as a character. I would not change her at all. The description of her, perfect. It's more the world building of this introduction. Because my guess is you're going to come back, return to her probably at the beginnings or endings of these episodes, or maybe at periodic moments. And she's going to be very, very integral to the story. Okay, greetings, dear voyeurs. Perfect. So let's get into the story itself. This part just wasn't necessary. Because she's basically already introduced it. We don't need another introduction. Let's do if her tool or her undoing. The woman vanishes, and behind them you see a backdrop that looks eerily realistic begin to swarm around you. So if you want to do this within the story itself, the only way you do that is you would have to do it as part of the backdrop, but it'd have to reveal new information. So like if you included the title, you'd have to like I would do it like, okay, this shows up, or maybe she pulls a card or something creepy happens. You could use it as a method to describe the stage. And this would actually be a really good way to then be like, okay, the stage is super creepy. There's skeletons hanging off. There's a, a, a black acidic thing drips from the back of the stage onto the title, Jezebel's Theater of Macabre Delights. You could do something like that if you wanted to represent that. But other than that, the lead up to the story is good. Now, in terms of the story itself, life isn't a checklist. So the theme, the character journey is actually really, really strong. I think this is actually a really strong theme. Most people can relate, and most people understand. I've probably been in that position of like, oh, maybe I feel like I should be doing more. I feel like my life should be exciting, but maybe my life is really boring. I'm sure we've all been in that type of moment before. So I think that's a really great job on the thematic element of it. As we get to the streets bulge. So this is a good description. You do a good job of setting the story within the story, which is good. Fresh coffee wafted like God's perfume. Great description. Fresh coffee wafted like God's perfume from nearby cafes. A young man, Tom 23. Yep. You do a good job. You don't actually really have to describe Tom too much. I know you're about to in a little bit. Since you're kind of setting him, kind of feels like a very like neutral character for the most part. And I think it's intentional because he's probably a neutral character that's going to get pulled into a very unnatural world, as you had already set the tone prior. You do a good job. Your description, Penelope, once again, I'm always impressed by your description. You do a really good job of using adjectives to in a way that's unique to frame the vibe of your world. Let's see, elevated train mixes. And yet there are moments of serenity. One to Tom's face. Yep, so this is all good. And that's the thing, you're touching on the theme very early on. Something I could recommend is I might actually recommend of starting with Tom's thoughts. And this is just a recommendation, but I might consider starting off with like one of his thoughts of like, you're not boring, or you're going to do something great today, or something, or even like a reference to the girlfriend, to the girlfriend. I'm not sure if they broke up, but it sounds like she's out of his life. So I think starting off with an interiority might be a really good hook into this. That speaks to the theme of the story. That's some subjective recommendation. Now as we get into, I love the sandwich shop, Chicago's Pun Witch. Our sandwiches are no joke, but our puns are fully loaded. I love it. That got me. I love it. Just make sure, and you do this a couple times throughout, quotes. So your use of quotation marks is one of your structure opportunities. We only use quotes if a character is speaking. So if you want to highlight this, you could go a couple ways. Since you do a lot of interiority in this story, I wouldn't italicize this one. I would probably bold this one. Unless the exception is, right, I might do something like that. So that way it makes it stand out if you want to highlight the name. If not, you could just leave it as is. Yep. All right, there we go. Now, yeah, I said that. Alternatively, you could do it in quotes if it was him actually reading it, or if somebody was literally saying the name to him. All right, Tom and Eaton there. That's good. And it's great because it's corny, and then he speaks that it literally does nothing to him. So it shows it does good character development. Great job of mixing the world building with the character development. And then you do some more description. Good. Muscular chest. Tom's very proud. Yeah, once again, your character description and your world building is just very well done, Penelope. I think from the story itself, a lot of any of the edits that need to be done are more structural and more just editing down words and not being overly descriptive. As you wove in and out, the leather jacket folded across his arm. Nights filled with spontaneous. Yep. All right, I might just cut this down. I want him to get to a Mandy a little sooner. So I would, from him and the sandwich shop to him thinking about Mandy, I would just edit this down just a little bit and maybe use this to tie into Mandy. But I like that I like that you use his description. You describe him here. I think you just need a reason to describe him, right? Something to happen. Like I could almost see like maybe someone at the sandwich shop is like, "Welcome to sandwich shop," blah, and then say the pun, and then you lead into the thing if they like make a comment on his appearance. Perfect leather jacket. But yeah, I think I just want to get to the Mandy bit because that's interesting. And then we get to death. That's great. All the death stuff is fun. All that's good. You keep a recipe for mac and cheese on your counter. This one, the change in pace or the change in a moment is the pacing threw me off just a little bit. I wasn't sure if Tom is walking on the sidewalk and he thinks of this and this is a memory, or if this is a change in scenery for us to hop to that moment. My guess is this is a memory. So I just you need to make this transition just a little clearer of like Tom sat on a bench and thought back to his last time with the last time he saw Mandy. And then I would do that. Or if you want to have it as an actual new scene, do some type of a scene break. Either or, it depends on how you want to go about it. But their fight is good. Yeah, their fight's really good. Their fight is really good. As a side note, as Tom stared at Mandy, his vision blurred by the absence of his glasses. You already explained in the last sentence that he took his glasses off. He took off his glasses and fiercely cleaned them. So now it's obvious that he's probably blinded. This is an example of trust that your reader will trust. This is an example of trust your reader. That it's really as straightforward as that. It's your reader. If they read he took off his glasses and fiercely cleaned them, they're going to be like, okay, they'll imagine, okay, he's cleaning his glasses. He probably can't see without them. He felt a surge of something as his vision blurred. Yep. Tom, that's good. Once again, these quotes are good. And then just the last thing, maybe she was right. I think we go back down to the sidewalk moment, which makes me think this is a memory. So once again, make it a clear transition back to the present moment. I like this predictable. I could totally picture this. This was great. What I might do is predictable, she said, and he scoffed at him. I think I would turn this into interiority and have it being him thinking predictable, predictable, predictable. Oh, no. Yeah, I would turn this into interiority and then transition back to the present moment of him saying predictable to himself or something like that. It just needs a clearer transition. And then you start touching upon death. The little lizard is fun. And all of this is good. Oh, side note, showing off it darking gold eyes. I don't know what darking gold is. What darking? I just don't know what darkening. Oh, yeah, it's probably darkening. Just a typo. My guess is it was darkening. And that is all that I got for you, my friend. Woo, wonderful. I absolutely love that. Oh my goodness. That was definitely a fun little read. It was definitely a fun little read for sure. I absolutely enjoyed that. Been like fussing with my hat the entire time. Okay. So that was a great read, Penelope. Thank you so much for submitting that. And I think I can tell from the comments that the people in the comments really enjoyed that as well. Let's see. Let me just hop into the comments. See what I missed, but it looks like everybody was really enjoying it. John, LOL. I like the boiled water soften the noodles line. I know it was a good use of kitchen description. It was a good use of food. It made me a little hungry actually. And now like the next time I start thinking about cooking noodles, that line's going to come to me. Such a diverse display of delightful, delicate, detailed descriptions. Completely agree. The ending was strong. Oh, hello. John, hello. No welcomes today. Let's see. Draws on a tradition line and like with Faust. Yeah, I was actually picking up on the Faust vibe as well, Eli. I'm glad you picked up on that. Absolutely agree. Very dry and sly humor. Yep. This that's the show that it reminded me of. WTC. I'm really glad you brought that up. Creep Show. Creep Show or Twilight Zone. This 100% reminded me of an episode, or the format feels like it's like a cross between Creep Show and Twilight Zone. Of like, you got the narrator at the beginning with Twilight Zone, but it's more like the Creep Show vibe of like, this is going to be super creepy and there's going to be like weird things you've never seen in your entire life. I definitely got that vibe. Absolutely love that. I could see, I never read or I never watched too much of Tales of the Crypt, but I'm pretty sure it is that exact vibe. The Crypt Keeper. Awesome. I'm glad that you got the feedback. Wonderful. As Jezebel comes back. I love that character, by the way. Jezebel is a great highlight, is a great host character. Absolutely. Penelope, the audience is made up of gremlins, ghosts, and goblins. I would not have guessed that. That needs to be so clear in the beginning. And I think a way you can do that in a way that doesn't hit the audience on the head is, I think you do the intro. Maybe you set the stage. You describe the stage that a little bit, and you set the goblins, ghouls, and the characters as the right before you transition into the story, right? So we actually, like, you could almost have the reader assume, oh, okay, it's probably an audience full of people, but then as one of the last lines, a goblin picked up a femur bone and tossed it at the stage, or something random, right? Something creepy and random. Woo! It's going on Amazon Vella, starts July 25th in its PG-13 form, and I'm considering Ream on its 18 plus form. Absolutely incredible. Penelope, please, please, please keep us updated and let us know how the journey goes. I'm wishing you nothing but success. And I could tell this will probably be super successful in that format. There's a huge niche. There's a huge interest in horror, and this kind of brings back that like kind of old horror vibe in modernizing it, which is fun because people love anthologies. People absolutely love anthologies. Interesting. You guys are chatting about Amazon Vela. Yeah, it's not something I'm too familiar with yet. I am planning on playing around with it in the future, but Penelope would definitely love your feedback as you're playing around on it. WTC. My wife found success on it with some of her serials in the beginning when it first started. But when Amazon changed their compensation structure, a lot of authors dropped off the platform. Interesting. I wonder if it's still finding a lot of success or not. Okay, cool. So it looks like you guys are just talking about Vela. Wonderful. I'm glad. I have no idea what Darking Gold Eyes is either. Hashtag editing. All right. Loud. I love this. Loud growls erupted from the audience with claws and gleaming fangs. That's an absolutely great suggestion, WTC. LOL, ghost tomatoes. And I totally see it as like, in this type of world, Jezebel probably wants them to throw stuff at the stage. Like normally, right? stuff being thrown at a stage is a bad thing, but in this world, it makes me I get the feeling that like they want like she's like, so throw your rotten tomatoes, your decayed bones, your growing fungus, or all the things. For some reason, I would say that as being a good thing. Excellent, beautiful, all caught up. So let's hop into the next story. We're going to be hopping on to reading number 2, A Love Memory, a memoir by Vaughn. Vajgrt. I was like, I hope I don't mess up your last name, my friend. Okay, so reading number 2, we're completely changing genres, and we're going to be changing from fantasy, dark fantasy, to memoir. All right. And by the way, as I'm prepping for this, if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. I do daily writing live streams. We are approaching 190 days of consecutive writing live streams with many shows. Obviously, we have our story and critique show. We have the story time segment where I read from best-selling novels. We have the Kauffman Writes, where I do writing sprints and we write as a community. And then we have the Create Right Now podcast, where I interview exciting authors. And tomorrow's episode is going to be about publishing your book as a writing collaboration. I have an exciting pair of authors coming up. So make sure you're subscribed and you'll be alerted when I go live. All right, beautiful. And once again, keep those comments coming. The comment of the day game is still active. I love what I'm seeing in the comments. You guys are giving some really great feedback, some really great critiques, and I absolutely love it. All right, beautiful. So let's hop into reading number 2, A Love Story. And let me finish pulling it up. All right, and I am all set. Here we go. Perfect. When life gives you tomatoes, make ketchup. I'm like, who needs lemonade anyways? Excellent. All right, so time to change gears. Welcome, Doreen. Glad to have you as well. Okay, so A Love Memory by Vaughn. In a small, rough-hewn community where dreams were often as worn as the wooden beams of old barns, I found a love that shimmered like a fairy tale amidst the grit of everyday life. Her name was Emily, an an ethereal beauty with raven black hair and eyes so caring they seemed to see right through the layers of dust and sweat that covered my soul. Our worlds couldn't have been more different. Emily attended a private Christian school, a pristine institution with ivy clad walls and an air of privilege that seemed a world apart from my own gritty reality. Her father was a respectful doctor, her future bright and promising. I, on the other hand, went to the local public school where most kids were destined for a life of labor ground down by the relentless gears of the local mill. I first laid eyes on Emily while working with my dad on a construction site. It was a sweltering summer day, and we were building a mansion, a barn style house made from a repurposed wood for a famous rock band called Incubus. The work was hard, but the pay was good, and the pride in my father's eyes made every splinter and bruise worth it. My boss, also the project's architect, had trusted me with staining the doors, an expensive task that could easily go wrong. One morning, he took me out for breakfast to discuss the day's plans. That's when I saw her. She was a waitress at the diner, her presence as enchanting as a fairy song. I couldn't help but approach her, my heart pounding as I introduced myself. I I don't know you, I said awkwardly. Emily smiled, a radiant beam of warmth. I, I graduated from Quincy High, he replied. I blinked in surprise. I left my sophomore year. That's why I don't remember you. As it turned out, she had transferred from her private school to Quincy High during my absence. This shared history, this bridging of two worlds, sparked a connection between us. My boss, who had built her family's beautiful home, provided another link between our lives. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, often revolving around our shared love for the violin. I had studied classical violin as a child, and Emily had taken her passion to LA, where she studied music, focusing on the violin. In Quincy, I had found solace in folk music, an unfamiliar but comforting departure from the rigidity of classical training. I visited Emily at her house, a grand testament to her family's success. It was during these visits that our bond deepened. We would talk for hours, our conversations blending into the soft notes of our favorite melodies. One Sunday, I decided to surprise her. I attended the church where I'd grown up, and there she was, her presence like a beacon. I brought her flowers, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. In front of the entire congregation, I handed them to her, my heart swelling with affection. A member of the church, a fellow volunteer firefighter, and my partner in battling blazes witnessed the exchange. She had been my comrade in the fiercest of fires, and I had given her a small token of honor, a memento of our shared bravery. Emily saw this too, understanding the deep connections that ran through my life. Despite the magic of our relationship, fate had other plans. Emily's path led her to nursing, a noble profession that suited her caring nature. I found purpose in a horse therapy program, a new chapter in my life that brought healing and hope to others. Yet, our lives diverged. She chose another musician to be her partner, and though it broke my heart, I respected her choice. Today, I see Emily occasionally in Quincy. Our encounters are bittersweet reminders of what once was and what could have been. Though our paths have taken different directions, the memories of our time together remain a cherished part of my story, a love memory that glows with the warmth of a bygone summer. Aww. And reading. Definitely. Definitely. Wow, Vaughn, that was a really, once again, a very, very heartwarming little story. Your use of descriptions that it what I absolutely love is that you have this very like fantastical approach with your descriptions, which are done really, really incredibly well because they contrast with the present reality of the real world. And I think that's a very, very good job because every time you use these fantastical descriptions, they prove to help show the character development for the character, which is really, really well done, my friend. I think that was really, really cool. I think it's it's very emotional and I like it. It's starting off you frame it in a way that like it makes me think that like okay, the two of them are going to end up. This feels like this is like the his like love. Like this is going to be like the one true love. And then it takes a turn, of course, right? Her meeting another musician. I'm like, oh, and that makes you feel so sad for the main character, even though, right, he accepts it and he moves forward and he's like, all right, he's very respectful about it. Now, let's hop into it. So, the things that I absolutely love. So, once again, your character development is awesome. 100% awesome. I love the character development. I love the way that you've structured this. I think it's very well done and it tells a story in a way that's very engaging. Let's see. So you do a good job of setting up the world of the story and setting up the character. Let's see. I found a love that shimmered like a fairy tale amidst the grit of everyday life. You do so many things like this, Vaughn. That's absolutely incredible. Let's see. Her name was Emily, an ethereal beauty with a raven black hair and eyes so caring they seemed to see right through the layers of dust and sweat that covered my soul. Oh, I love your word choice. I absolutely love your word choice. I like so can they could see right through the layers of dust and sweat that covered my soul. I like part of me wanted to edit it down for length, but at the same time, it's very engaging. I love it. So I think I'd leave it as is. Our worlds couldn't have been more different. And I think you do a good job of setting up the differences between the two characters, which is really, really cool. I think the only thing you do a good job of going into your the main character's own description. Let's see. Okay, so this was just this sentence in particular. Her father was a respected doctor, her future bright and promising. That just needs to be reworded, or it needs to be reframed. Her father was a respectful doctor, her future bright and promising. Feels like two separate sentences. Her daughter was a respected father that expected great things from her. Great things of her. Something to that extent. So that just needs to be reframed. And then I would make this an entirely new paragraph so that way you could make basically each of you guys get more of a description. And I love this. I love the way that you describe this, that you describe yourself of like, she's this very like, she's a Christian school. She's from a unique school. She wants to be a doctor. She's very kind. I think you do a good setup for her. I would go a little bit more maybe her father and the expectations. I think this would be a good opportunity to build some tension. And then I would do a little bit more description for you as well. I absolutely love that you're talking about, you start with the public school and the way that the character views it. I might layer on maybe like one or two more sentences about who you are, the main character is. Just so we can get even more tethered to the main character. Like, what are things I want to know? Like, why does the character have like such like have such an affinity for this like fairy tales and for this like fantastical, this type of world? Like, I almost think of like, on the other hand, with the local school ground down by the relentless gears of the local mill, even though I could easily pull open a good book and my head would be lost in fairy tales. Or even though I could be sweating, even though I could be drenched in sweat and grime and dust, all it would take would be a moment to close my eyes and be lost in the fairy tales of what ifs, possibilities, and maybes of the future. Something like that. I want to get like a little bit more like dive and depth into you, because I think that's so interesting. It is so interesting of this protagonist. And then you describe her, which is fun. Incubus. I like the Incubus reference. That was awesome. Repurposed wood for a famous rock band called Incubus, because I'm sure everybody's at least heard the rock band named Incubus before. And I like that. So you do a good job of setting it, because you're setting the world here. And let's see. Then you go into, she was a waitress at the diner. Her presence as enchanting as a fairy song. That's just very well put. I absolutely love that. Let's see. I don't know you. I said awkwardly. This is good. So you do a good job. Oh, and just make sure with the dialogue, as I introduce myself, I don't know you. And then make sure whenever you have a new character speaking, it's always a new paragraph. Different new characters. Any change of character always gets their own paragraph. And then you would do something like that. As it turned out, that's why I don't remember you. And then the spacing could just be from the formatting on my end. Perfect. So this is a connection. And I think what you do a really good job here is establishing the connection from their early relationship. You do an incredible job of it, right? You have the shared interest of, they meet in the diner. They both almost missed each other at Quincy High. They both have, what was that? They both have a love for music, the violin, which is awesome. And then this flower scene is really, really interesting. I would make this, so make sure I would make this its own separate paragraph. Yep, there we go. So I'd make this its own paragraph because this flower thing is really sweet. That's a really sweet moment. We could talk for hours. It's almost like, Vaughn, if you were to expand this, I would almost want a little bit more here of your guys' like relationship. It feels like there could be a paragraph in between Emily, you and the Emily, the characters bond is deepening. Like, what is that moment where it almost sounds like they're falling in love, which is really, really sweet. It almost seems like there's an opportunity to show a transition from how do they get here talking for hours to the flower scene. But that could just be subjective. Like that could work as well. But I think a little bit more description here could be beneficial. This flower thing is really, really sweet. She had been, and then you go in to touch upon the volunteer firefighter. And at first I didn't understand. I'm like, okay, well, why the firefighter reference? And I'm like, okay. So the firefighter is essentially for the main character's character building. And that makes sense. Despite the magic of our relationship, they had other plans. Now, this is good. So to make this even stronger, you want to have I might almost I might almost suggest replacing this paragraph, the firefighter paragraph, with something that feels more meaningful. You want their relationship to be at the heart. You want their relationship to be at the height of what was the most powerful moment of their relationship, right? So I handed them to her and my heart swelling with affection. This was the first time. So imagine like, I'm just going to delete this for a second. I handed them to her, my heart swelling with affection. This was the first time I fell in love. Something to that effect. Doesn't need to be that exactly, but you see, this builds the relationship at a very high moment. We want to have the height of the relationship. And then, despite the magic of our relationship, fate had other plans. Oh no, right? So then you're going from a high to a low. That'll make that more effective. This is good. Okay. Now the thing that and this is the biggest opportunity for this story is the transition out of the relationship. So the moral does work for it. Like the way he responds to it is like, okay, he's respectful, he's kind. And I think the ending, today I see Emily, that memories of our time together made a cherished part of my story. And I think that can work. I think the ending can work, but what we're missing right now is the describe the magic of fate had other plans. And that's the thing. This is even the transition into act 2. What's missing right now is a real climax of the story. That's what the story is missing. You spent so much time building up both of the characters, this relationship, and it feels so magical. And then it's suddenly just gone. And like, that's all right. That happens. But we need to, the reader needs to be involved in that moment, right? Emily's path led her to nursing, a more noble profession that suited her current nature. So basically, like the two characters went into opposite directions, right? That happens. She chose another musician to be her partner. And though it broke my heart, I respected her choice. So this is this is a heartbreaking moment, right? But what you do is you only do it in one sentence. I would recommend this was the first time I felt, despite the magic of a relationship, they had other plans. So what I would imagine, you could do this in one or two ways. I would do this relationship moment or the musician moment. This should be turned into at least a couple paragraphs and make this the actual scene. What was that moment that it happened where like the main character like goes to her with like, hey, let's go on a trip together or something like that would have been the next step. But then there's some type of apprehension of her talking about her nursing program, that she wants to go pursue nursing, and then have it lead into that she wants to be with another musician, right? So I think by building up this climax moment, because right now it's just very it's almost like it's too bittersweet. And as a reader, you've built so much stakes. I want to be involved in that moment. And that is how you will make the reader cry when they listen to this, because it's very emotional. And I think if you highlight this climax moment, then when the readers read through it, I think you'll have your readers in tears by the end, in honesty, because your use of language is so well done. That would be my one recommendation for this. And then this is good. Like, this is bittersweet. Love memory that glows with the warmth of a bygone summer. I think the only thing I would include is I found purpose. The only thing I would include is, what did the character learn? What was the one thing that he learned from this relationship? There are paths of taking different directions. So the memories stick with him, which is great. The memories are awesome. There are paths of taking different, the memories of our time together remains a cherished part of my story. A love memory that glows with the warmth of now. Okay, that's such a good ending. Like, that is such a good ending. I would like include, like, what's like the one thing that you learned, the one thing the character learned from this story as it pertains to this relationship. And it's almost like you set this up as like, oh, it's this magical relationship, but it didn't work out. Maybe the learning was like, oh, this relationship was way more emotional than the main character thought it would be. Or maybe it was, oh, this was like an early time the main character fell in love, right? You want to think about what was the one learning and the one takeaway, because then by the end, you want the character to be able to touch upon that, because that's the theme of the story. Right. And I think you do it. I think you just need to literally say it, knock it on the head, so that the reader is like, oh. And if you built up the climax a little bit, the reader's going to be so like emotional, and then they'll be there with you with the message and the theme. So those once again, really, really great work, my friend. I see once again another clear, consistent theme with your writing. Once again, I remember the last excerpt of yours was extremely emotional. So really, really well done, Vaughn. Thanks for submitting this, my friend. Really, really fun. I always have such an appreciation for memoirs and this type of storytelling, because it's not something that's within my own wheelhouse. It's not like, is it something I could do? Potentially, of course, with practice, but it's not something that comes naturally to me. You guys know when I'm working on my story, like things that come naturally to me as character development, world building, and fantasy, sci-fi worlds. Comedy takes a little bit more work. It's a lot more practice. In in-air writing, we can improve our writing and we can do something that we're not used to. It just takes practice and time. That's really all that it is. But some things come natural to writers, and I can just tell from like Vaughn, from your writing, that a lot of your word choice and this type of like poetic, it's like this poetic rhythm is natural to you. And I think that's incredible, my friend. Thank you so much for submitting. I really appreciate it. All right, beautiful. So with that one being said, the next one I'm going to be queuing up is reading number 3, Baboon Pie and Jaguar Champagne. Excellent. So one queuing up Eli's. Let me hop into the comments. WTC quote, her body was a symphony of desire and he was a willing listener to her melody. I absolutely love that. WTC, you are on fire today. You got some like really good quotes that you're coming with. Like, everyone should be like asking WTC for like some quotes, some recommendations for their stories. You must be an avid reader, my friend. Let's see. What a lovely tale. Such an emotional roller coaster. 100%. Completely agree, Lewis. I think if this was turned into a movie, this is like that main. I know exactly the vibe you're going for. This is definitely like oh, it would almost be like a drama, right? Where you have the main character speak at the very beginning of like this, using that language, and then ending off that little beginning, the voiceover of, and she was the one that got away, or she was the love of my life, and then ... and then you see the relationship. 100%, because it's so poetic, Vaughn. You have such an opportunity here for a visual medium as well. No, I'm confused. Is it a chapter of a large memoir? If it's a standalone, it sounds like early heartbreak, but didn't develop to relationship, but description implies more. Exactly. And I think so. It is it's a small section. I believe it's a standalone story. It's a standalone memoir. And this is something what I was speaking to, right? I think it just like, it sounds like the like early heartbreak, but didn't develop to relationship, but description implies more, right? And I think that the opportunity there is for the opportunity is for the writer to describe where that distinction is, right? Whether or not it was like this loving relationship, or whether or not it hit the brink of that loving relationship, the possibility and the potential. I think regardless the language, I think the character still learns from the journey, right? And that comes down to the writer then to describe where that distinction is. Because for all you know, maybe this was like the one true love, or maybe this was the relationship that led the character to find the one true love. So good call out, Nim. I love this. Lewis. The violin in their veins, playing on the heartstrings. I know. I love that they're both on the violin vibe. If you love something, set it free. Completely agree. Absolutely. All right, beautiful. So we are going to be hopping into Eli's. And by the way, as I'm prepping Eli's over here, I just want to give y'all a heads up to one of my new services. So with the Creative Ghost, I am launching, I mentioned this, I want to say about a week or two ago, alpha and beta reading services. So I've been trying to come up with something that's cheaper to help writers out, because I know the writing process can be expensive. So this is exactly what I do here on the Story and Critique Show, alpha and beta reading. I'm pricing myself at the very low end of the alpha beta reading to try to create a very low end opportunity to help you, the writer. So if you need feedback on a full read through of a story, because as you can see, I'm generally able to get through maybe anywhere between a quarter to a chapter, depending in the show. But if you need feedback on like a full work offline, then essentially I basically read it and I can give you the full feedback. You see the feedback I give on the show, and I try to rate it at roughly about a 20 per hour average-ish, depending on the word count. So if you're interested, definitely reach out to me. Definitely doing alpha beta reading services. I didn't even think about offering it originally until I've like hit I'm almost at 22 episodes of the show, and I'm like, the Story and Critique Show, this is alpha beta reading. This is exactly what I'm already doing. So now I'm just offering it as a service outside of the stream through my creative ghost company. So absolutely. And if you want to know more, I'm going to throw it in the comments. Here's my email address. Make sure you just shoot me an email. If you need feedback, if you need an alpha or beta reader, I'm sure you all know what an alpha and beta reader is. But just to clarify for those who don't, essentially, it's that step between you writing the story and you sending it off to an editor or getting it published. It is that in-between step where you've just finished the story and you need feedback. You need feedback from somebody who is not your mom. I mean, sure, have your family read it. They'll probably love it. But you need feedback from somebody who's not your parents. Now, of course, like maybe get feedback from friends, absolutely. But you need true feedback that is completely not influenced by who you are as a person. And that's where alpha and beta readers come in. They read through the entire story. They basically tell you what they think. That's boiling it down in a nutshell. They tell you like, oh, these things work, they don't work, characters great, characters suck, dialogue, so on and so forth. So alpha and beta reading, highly recommend. That's my new service. All right, beautiful. Oh, thanks, WTC. Yeah, I was like, I think alpha beta reading just made sense to add for the services. Durian, great question. How many words for $20 alpha reading? What I would say is send me the word count of whatever your story is. Like, let me know how many words is your story, and I can give you an actual price. I'm averaging it to about $20 an hour. So it kind of depends on how many words it is, right? So it's like, if I'm telling someone like, okay, I'll do $20 an hour, but then they gave me like a 200,000 word story, I'm like, okay, that's going to take me like 6 hours to read at least. So it depends on the word count. Give me a word count and I'll give you what I can do it for. But it's averages to about 20. I'm trying to keep it on the very low end to help people out. Thanks for asking though, Doreen. I appreciate that. All right. So with that being said, let's pull up Eli's. Reading number 3, Baboon Pie and Jaguar Champagne. All right, perfect. So, Eli, I've been looking forward to hopping into your story, my friend. This is definitely a really good one. All right, here we go. So, I know we've had a lot of fun with the previous excerpts of your story. All right, beautiful. What if they're really small words? You're like, okay, 100,000 words, but it's 4-point font. So therefore, it should be divided by four divided by the cost. Absolutely, Sean. That's why I should obviously just give obviously I should base the pricing off of the font choice and the font size. Like, all right, 700,000 word story, $20. I'll read through it in like 30 minutes. I promise you. It'll be the best feedback you've ever received in your life. You'll be like, yeah, so I read it. It has a really good beginning, a very good middle, and a very good end. Please write more. Oh man. Yeah, but if you're wanting an alpha beta rating, just let me know what the word count is of it, and I'll give you a better price for it. I'm basically judging it based on how much time it's going to take me to read it. I'm a really fast reader, and it's definitely the cheapest of the services I'm offering now for sure. Because my coaching service is definitely a little pricier, and the editing tends to be the most priciest. So thanks for asking, guys, and thanks for keeping me entertained. Okay. So WTC winning the chat. Well, Lewis, you're definitely having some great comments over here. I'm like, you guys got some real competition today. Once again, like keep the comments coming because there is some real competition today. I've seen some incredible quotes. So keep your comments coming, my friends. All right, Elan, let's hop into your story. All right, let's reset the timer. Perfect. So as most of you know, we went through the beginning of the first chapter of Eli's story, and with what was his name? He had a really cool name too, but it's this like sci-fi story with this like kind of like rogue, like thug assassin almost. I like absolutely love it. Mm. So it's definitely really cool, and I love how it's coming along. Awesome, Eli. You're like new chapter, new POV character. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Baboon Pie and Jaguar Champagne by Eli. Chapter 2. Make sure I got my highlighter. Joanna 1, 35. Kansas City, Missouri, May 28th, 2019. Joanna woke up first that morning, so she rolled over and plugged her sister's nose until she jolted awake from what had been a deep, restful sleep. How long? How long? Eva asked desperately. No more than 20 seconds. I'm certain, Joanna replied. You're sure? Eva always pressed her twin sister on this point, thinking that Joanna had a tendency to dawdle when she woke up first. Yes, I'm sure. That's what certain means, she responded acridly. Eva was quiet for a few moments, but after a pregnant pause, she said, of course it is, in a crisp tone, and with the subject was dropped. Happy birthday, Eva. Joanna smiled. Her sister had been her best friend her whole life, since before they were born. Eva giggled and gave her a big hug. Happy birthday, Joe, her sister said back and kissed her on her forehead. They were inseparable, always had been. Naturally, as identical twins, they looked just alike. They were both just under 5.5 feet tall and weighed around 120 pounds. They had voluptuous, full figures and waist length jet black hair. They had dark brown eyes and large aquiline noses, and their ears tucked tightly back against their heads, which always gave them an air of hurriedness and kineticism. Their lips were full of pouty and curled sinisterly at the corners when they shared an unspoken inside joke, which was often. So, does 35 feel any different from 34? Joanna was smiling sinisterly and asked the question in a gruff, deep voice like her father's. He'd always asked them since they were old enough to remember. Eva rolled her eyes at first. Then it seemed to Joanna that all at once her sister started to desaturate, to disintegrate, perhaps? Joanna didn't know. She didn't remember ever seeing such a look on her sister's face before. For the most minute, almost imperceptibly brief moment, and yet it stretched on forever. But somehow Joanna knew that time had all but stopped for an endless moment. Eva seemed out of phase with the rest of the room. Or was it Joanna? Before she could unravel that thought, her sister answered her, and the strange phase shifting feeling left her like a raindrop falling effortlessly from a cloud. I think 35 does actually feel a little different from 34 did, Eva said, nodding with a slight pouty frown. Enough of that, she said, noticing the look of doom that had crept across Joanna's face. It wasn't a look anyone else was likely to notice, but Eva could see the way Joanna's eyes refused to focus on anything. Come on, we'll feel better when we're rinsed the night off. She stood up and took Joanna by the hand and pulled her gently up out of bed. The girls' bathroom was painted a deep, relaxing cerulean blue with a copper and terracotta accents. The morning sun shone through the golden stained glass skylight and the steam from the shower, and it was like being transported into a dimension of pure warmth and glorious, euphoric sunlight. Joanna loved this bathroom. She never felt safer or more secure in this bathroom. In this shower, crowded in with Eva, womb like. Joe, my back. Come on, Joe. Where are you? I need you to soak my back, please. I'm getting cold. Her reverie was cut short by Eva's third request to have Joanna lather her back with soap. Oh, of course. How silly of me. Let me get your back, Eva. She smiled sweetly, and her sister turned around and waited. Joanna took a bar of minty smelling soap from a small ledge on the side of the shower vestibule and lathered a fluffy orange washcloth with it. She set the soap back in its place and diligently washed her sister's back. When she was done, they traded places, and Eva took a fresh, fluffy washcloth and washed Joanna's back in turn. A little later, Joanna and her sister stood at the bathroom mirror. They were matching baby pink terry cloth robes and brushed their teeth with the unison of a philharmonic cello section. Each stroke was in sync, and they started and stopped as one. How are we feeling about later? Joanna asked her sister. They'd see their mother downstairs. They lived together, and the three of them were going to a cute little cafe downtown for lunch. But she was referring to their dinner plans. Oh, God, I'm not sure. So many emotions. We're getting old, aren't we, Joe? I know we are. I wasn't going to say, but since you brought it up. What? Eva asked tentatively. You're starting to sag a bit. I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but when I was washing your back, it was starting to sag a little, Joanna said with an air of authentic concern and a genuine desire to help her sister. My back was sagging? Eva asked, surprised and somewhat taken aback. No, not your back. And she glanced at Eva's rear end. Eva followed Joanna's glance with her own, and when she saw where Joanna was looking, she glowered at her half scandalized. Joanna immediately broke eye contact and began brushing her hair in an attempt to look uninterested. Eva did not, however, get upset. She simply recognized that her sister had her best interests in mind, as she always did, and swallowed her pride. You think so? She asked, craning her neck and looking at her backside with a frown. Oh, don't frown like that. You'll get wrinkles. I shouldn't have said anything. I guess it's just that I'm feeling old as well. Eva was fine to keep her face expressionless as she spoke. You know, we always talked about our lives, and we had a family by now. Joanna sighed and for a moment or two looked crestfallen, past her reflection in the mirror and the bathroom in Kansas City. She couldn't seem to find any place else that she could get to. It took longer than it ought to for her to come up with something to say to her sister. Well, yes, but we were kids. We didn't know anything about what that really meant. She finally managed to sputter out. Eva smiled a sad, sad smile. I suppose that's true. She sighed, and now it was Joanna who was frowning, and Eva scolding her for it. Wrinkles! Joanna had jolted somewhat, then relaxed her face. Bit her lip slightly and looked down at the glistening marble countertop. The two women sat in silence for a while, Joanna brushing her hair, Eva fussing over a patch of dry skin that she'd noticed above her left eyebrow. This would have been bad enough, but when they discovered that Joanna's eyebrow did not have the same patch of dry skin, it was clear that Eva wasn't going to be able to ignore it. She pumped a silky looking yellow cream out of a bottle on the countertop and began rubbing the cream into the dry patch of skin. Finally, Joanna spoke. Lunch with mom should be fun. Hmm? Eva groaned, still fixated on the dry patch of skin while becoming blotchy and red from being rubbed and poked at. It's going to be weird though. First birthday without dad. She started to say something else, but it wouldn't come out. So she just pulled the brush lightly through her long black hair and remembered their father for a moment. Her sister noticed this and stopped fussing with her face. I miss him. I miss him too, you know? She put her hand on Joanna's shoulder, and when Joanna turned her head to look, Eva met her gaze and added, sister. She smiled at Joanna, and Joanna smiled back at her, both holding back tears. They sat for a little while, each remembering their father. Eva was the first to speak again. Do you think Daddy understood James? And, like us? She started fussing with a patch of dry skin again, but forced herself to stop and waited for Joanna to answer. I think he tried to, Joanna said after considering the question for a long time. I think he wanted to understand, that he thought understanding would help him share in our joy on some deeper level, maybe. But, well, you know, he died, Eva said almost defiantly. Joanna was shocked that she'd said it, let alone how plainly. Eva drew in a long, deep breath and let it out through her nose. As she exhaled, her face, which had been surprised at her own words, softened to a quiet and self-assured dignity. There, I said it. He's gone. And that can't hurt us, Joe. Joanna felt like she might cry. She looked down and to the left and chewed her bottom lip nervously, thinking about what Eva had said. You're right, she realized, nodding. Of course you are. She thought of the last time their father had seen James, their shared boyfriend. It was a year earlier when they had celebrated their 34th birthday. Joanna started laughing as the memory came back to her. Remember when Daddy met James? Joanna and Eva had been standing around the dining room table downstairs with James, their mother, Dorothy, and their two brothers and sisters. James looked so handsome. He wasn't a tall man, but he was taller than Joanna and Eva. With a razored bald head, his hair was a light sandy brown and dazzling baby blue eyes. His nose was sharp and short, and from the bridge to where it faded into his upper lip, always looked strikingly like a lightning bolt in profile. He wore sideburns to offset his rather large ears, and they did the job well. His jaw was strong, and his mouth was often and easily curled into a smile. Joanna laughed harder and looked at her sister. Eva was starting to chuckle softly as she remembered what Joanna was talking about. As soon as Eva opened her mouth to speak, deep, full-throated laughter sang out of her, and tears welled in the corner of her eyes. When, she wheezed, turning to Joanna and running her fingers back and forth between her and her sister, like trains on parallel tracks. When he when he came around the corner with the cake. It was too much. Eva was wiping the tears that streamed down her happy face and grasping to catch her breath. Joanna continued her sister's thoughts seamlessly, flawlessly, as it had been her thought as well. His smile when he saw James kiss me on the cheek. Joanna snorted and descended into a fit of laughter. She took a tissue from a box on the countertop and dabbed the corners of her eyes. Oh, bless his heart, Eva continued. It was so sweet. He started putting down the cake. You remember? Oh, this must be, he started to say. Joanna was choking back laughter, trying to get through to the funniest part of the story. She gave her sister a knowing and half-scandalized look. When James kissed you, Daddy's face turned as dark as an eggplant. You remember the sound the cake made when it hit the table? This must be some gigolo you brought into my home, huh? Oh, Joe! The pitch of Eva's laughter was starting to wind down, and she kept talking through giggles. I don't remember Daddy ever being that mad. Do you? All right. And I'm actually going to stop it there because I want to make sure to have enough time to critique it. But I think I could tell that we were getting the gist of that, of the end of that story. Okay, beautiful. First off, once again, Eli, your description is always so good. It's always really, really good, man. You do a really really good job of using a diverse set of adjectives, but you combine the adjectives and you frame them in a way that's so unique to your style. Um, that's actually been like the theme of today's show, is very unique. We have a lot of great writers with varied description. So you did a really good job on setting up the characters, setting up their dynamic. I am crystal clear on who each of these girls are. I actually I love it. Okay, they're twin sisters, but I'm starting to get this distinction between Eva and Joe. Happy birthday, Joe. So it's Joanna's birthday, and Eva, it makes me think that Eva is the more it makes me think that Eva's like the more like mm, because you do the shower scene. I want to say that Eva's almost like the more straightforward of the two. That among, I want to make sure that I was clear. Yeah. Okay. Let's hop into it. I want to get to the comments of it. So starting from the top, I think once again the character development is awesome. I'm loving the character development. The dialogue is great. Dialogue and character development work very, very well for this. I think Eli, right now, my two biggest opportunities for this. Structure is a question mark, and I'm not sure why, and I'm going to tell you why. I think right now my two question marks for it is world building and plot. I'll start with the world building. The world building right now is a question mark because since this is chapter 2 of the story, this chapter thematically feels extremely different than the previous chapter, right? I feel like I'm in in an entirely different world. And maybe that's intentional. That could very well be extremely intentional, especially because we're in what? This is 5 28 19. Yeah, so I mean, this could be a very different world, and I think it might be intentional, but it does feel very, very different thematically than who we had with your what was it? The robber. It was like the biker guy. I was like Zikung. So completely different vibe. These two chapters almost feel like entirely different stories. Now, if this was an anthology piece, that's fine. But because this is not, it sounds like that this is a narratively Zikun. Yep. So it sounds like because like narratively, these are both like since chapter 1 and chapter 2. I think right now chapter 2 is missing that sci-fi dynamic. You're doing a great job on the character descriptions. You're doing a great job on setting up these characters. But right now, if I hadn't have read chapter 1, I would my gut, like let's say I took chapter 1 out of it and this was the first thing I read. My guess is that this would have been this story alone would either be potentially young adult, potentially romance, or potentially some type of like family drama if I hadn't read chapter 1. Now, I know that the focus is like the character development and their dynamic, and that's fine, but I think you can find opportunity. I mean, but it's in 2019. And I think this is always the challenge, right? From doing a live reading without knowing too much more of the plot and the overarching story, I can't make any comments other than that. So it always comes down to one of those things of like, if this is intentional, then great work. If if these are supposed to feel like they're in the same world, then there's an opportunity, right? But only you know since it's your storyline. So that was just the first thing that came to me from a world building. That's only because we've gone through the first chapter a couple times. And then the second one with the plot, you know, what's interesting, so it's Joanna's birthday. And I think that's interesting. I think the only thing I'm not sure about is I'm not quite sure what is at stake in this chapter. That's the only thing I'm not clear about. They're taught no, actually not no, take that back. The stake is I think the meeting with the mom. Because that's when they show apprehension. So I think it's the apprehension with the parents. So the plot has to revolve something around the parents. I think what it needs is I think earlier on, we need a little bit of foreshadowing. But once again, this is just a guess without knowing what the overarching plot is. Interesting. So, like, in some sense, I think the first chapter functions sort of as a prologue too, to inject the sci-fi feel early, so it can slow burn character stuff early. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. I think I might have a clue then where what you're doing with the story. Yeah, your foreshadow, it's just too subtle. But once again, Eli, without knowing more of the story, I can't really speak to it. If you want, you're more than welcome to like email me just like a brief plot, and I'd be happy to tell you yes or no on if the foreshadowing works or not in the offline. So that way you don't break the plot for the audience. But yeah, I'm just not sure what you're foreshadowing in this one. But in the first chapter, the foreshadowing was incredible because you mentioned things like the gun and the Russian and the thing with the truck driver, and then there was just so much foreshadowing, I think, which is why this one feels distinctly different, and that's fine. It's a different character, and I know it's supposed to be intentional, but I'm just not sure what it is. So my recommendation is maybe making the foreshadowing a little just more obvious in this chapter. Absolutely. Joanna had it first. And we can go through, let's see, each of these different sections. You're sure Eva always pressed her twin sister on this point, and that Joanna had a tendency to dawdle when she woke up first. And that's the thing. I like both of these characters. I mean, I love that they're doing the twin thing. That's interesting. I see. I think the foreshadowing may have been too subtle. Okay, that's good to know. I'm going to talk to you about it through email. We can discuss writing coaching serves. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to chat writing coaching, just let me know an email, and I'm happy we can talk more through it. The thing that I love about writing coaching is I'm actually able to deep dive into stuff. Which, like, I feel like the problem with the online live readings is I like get into the story, but I can't actually go as in depth as I want to because I don't have time. Let's see. I did highlight pregnant, so that's good. I'm glad I got I'm glad I touched on that. I think then it also means like, what do you want the reader to be surprised about when they get to the moment? And if maybe it's a pregnancy plot. And I mean, you also touch upon the themes of aging with the sisters in the bathroom, and that's interesting. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. Mary, you are absolutely right. I'm like, whose birthday is it? No, you're right. And trust me, I like knew they were twins, and for some reason, I didn't connect that. that was my fault in it being a live reading. Oh my goodness. Mary, thanks for calling that out. I'm literally on the page that says twin too. Oh man, that's funny. I'm like, no, twins have different birthdays. But maybe they have different birthdays in a sci-fi universe. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so Joanna had a tendency to dawdle. Something I might also include, Eli, in their early descriptions is they are twins, and I know twins look very similar. Is there a is there a physical thing that makes them stand out or differentiates them from each other? I mean, I don't know any twins personally, but from stories I've read that include twins, from media I've seen about twins, there's always some type of thing that differentiates both of them, whether it's like a birthmark or whether it's a trait. And I think that might make it a little clearer in the beginning of what is different about the two of them. Sometimes they come across similar, sometimes they come across distinct, and I think it just depends on the page, in all honesty. Yeah, like it could be like a scar, birthmark, could be maybe like if you don't want them to be physically changed, you could have what I've heard from twins is that they like to sometimes they want to have different styles. So maybe one does their hair intentionally different, maybe one has piercings, tattoos is another one. There's different ways you could go about it. Yeah, and I mean they literally say happy birthday to each other. Wow, that's on me. And it's once again like I love your use of description. They had dark brown eyes and large aquiline noses, and their ears tucked tightly back against their heads, which always gave them an air of hurriedness and kineticism. And I think, Eli, with your descriptions, I think in this chapter specifically, right now the descriptions work, I would say 75% of the time, and then 25% they need to be cut back just a little bit. But that's more just like an editing thing than that's more just editing down wordiness than anything else. What I like to do, and this is something that I used to struggle with because I've always been overly descriptive. When you reread through a chapter and you take a paragraph, if you reread it aloud and you take out a sentence, does the paragraph still make sense without the sentence that you took out? Does it still prove the point or get across the theme or the imagery that you want for the reader? That's a good strategy that I try when I'm doing it myself. Let's see, are they identical or fraternal? You can have them look very different. Yeah, and you see, Mary, that's a good call. My gut was telling me that they're identical from the way Eli was framing it, but you can have them look very yeah, my gut was saying identical, but it's not clear. So maybe Eli, that's a good point, something for you to call out. Without giving away something too big, the theme of this chapter is the desynchronization of their lives. The status quo is very much the twin thing. Okay, so if the twin thing, so that means they're probably identical then. Then that means the best way is you're starting off the chapter with them doing everything in sync. That makes sense why they're starting off with the happy birthday and the happy birthday, all that stuff. That's the thing. They can look identical, but you have to make that a point. You have to make that a very, very point. And then you have to also have a way for the reader to differentiate which one is which. Because right now, sometimes they sound different, sometimes they sound the same. And if the point is that they start off the same, but then they start devolving into something different, you just have to be intentional about that change. And it's probably easier. I'm sure it gets easier and more apparent once they start getting more apart because those become more obvious descriptions. But it's harder in the beginning because in the real world, like, sure, everything can be the same, but in the reading world, the reader has to be able to differentiate the two. That's a very hard challenge to take on, by the way, actually. But I know you're definitely up to it, but it's a very hard challenge. Hmm. Damn, that's great. They are, it says it plainly. Okay, perfect. So then you call them out for being identical twins, and I just missed it. Perfect. Let's inseparable, naturally. Oh, yep, here we go. Inseparable always had been naturally as identical twins. They looked just alike. And I think, Eli, I think the reason that there's a couple of these things that I was missing, I think it's because I'm trying to figure out which character was which. Because right now, I don't have a clear distinction. Like, they're both exactly the same. And I think for me as a reader, part is probably also partially because I'm doing it as a live thing. But I think I almost like felt at times like I was mixing them up because they are exactly the same. So I don't know what's different about them. Until the first thing that's different is the sagging thing, and that was the first interesting thing that I was like, oh, that's interesting. What are good stories? I think, Eli, what I would recommend is you should check out stories you should check out stories where they have societies where everyone does exactly the same things, and then see how writers do it. Something like Brave New World is a completely different vibe, of course, but Brave New World is everyone is in a very similar society. I would just check out examples of like, how do I create a scene where everyone is the exact same, but I can still make them stand out? Because to me, the first thing that stood out was the shower scene. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was interesting, because now I'm like, okay, one is sagging a little bit, and maybe she is, maybe she isn't, but it's funny, right? And that's part of the thing. And then we got to the family story, and the family story was interesting. Joanna, that all at once her sister started to desaturate or disintegrate, perhaps. This was a great line, by the way. This was a great line. But John knew that. Let's see. I said in the description. I very much want them to seem the same. It's like they're like a thing they're doing. Yeah. And I think that's fine. I think they both have anxieties over very different things. I don't know if that's not enough. You know what? Actually, Eli, an idea just came to me. What if this just came. This is how I would write it. Shorten the first third of the paragraph, the first third of the chapter. So the whole sections where they're the same, I would say minimize it. Instead of focusing on describing them, describe all of their interactions as the two of them, so that it's clear. Make it so crystal clear from the beginning. These sisters were the exact same. They were identical. Nothing about them. Like maybe if you did setup for them and you made it clear they're the exact same character and you're making that, it makes it feel like it's an intentional choice. And then when one of them is like, oh, you're sagging, then the reader's like, oh shit, I thought they were the exact same. You could almost use that sagging moment as a as a plot point, actually. Like it almost feels like it's like the first plot point. And I think you just need to make it like crystal clear that they're exactly the same. I would cut down on the dialogue then on the first like third of it, and I would focus more in on describing why they're the exact same. That they do everything, they braid each other's hair, they look the exact same, they walk the same, they both wake up and say the same thing. I would focus in on that, and I would make that like punch that to the point. And then when the things start changing, then the reader will be like, oh shit. And I think that's the way that I would tackle it personally. If that's the focus, instead of trying to differentiate them as two separate characters, I would just make, essentially you're setting them up as one character, so to speak. I think that's the way I would tackle it personally. I'm sure there are different ways to tackle it, but that's just one recommendation. But then once you start getting into the shower scene is great. Like, Eli, also something I recommend whenever let's make sure that if you have a friend or family member, Eli, read through your work if you haven't, who is a female, who's a girl or female. Whenever I write a character that's a different gender than me, I always like to have somebody of that gender read it and then tell me, hey, is there something in here that doesn't feel like it's something that a female would do? I always do that as a safeguard when I'm writing opposite genders. So that's just an FY, something that comes to mind. It doesn't have to happen now, but sometime down the line. Mm-hmm. Mary saying that's the point that threw me about being truly identical. Yeah, so I think Eli, you just have to make it clear that they're. Yeah, I think you just have to make it clear, like crystal clear, like beat the reader on the head that they're exactly identical. And then the moment that one of them finds something different, like that should be a bigger moment of realization. That should be like an oh shit moment, even though that's small. And I think you kind of downplay it. I think you need to make that a bigger moment of like, you're sagging and I'm not. Like she needs to, like, instead of inspecting herself, she needs to inspect the other sister, because like this is the first time they've divulged. So I think that maybe focusing on that, if you don't downplay that so much, and because right now it comes across as like, oh, it's kind of like silly, like sisterly stuff. But then if you don't downplay it, that'll make the reader be like, okay. It makes the reader question of like, oh, is this a sister thing or is this something else? And then it creates good tension. Oh, yeah, your use of language is once again awesome. Let's see. All right, so yeah, Eli. So I was just going back to the comments. I just want to make sure that I didn't misread. So you said that the theme of the chapter is the desynchronization of their lives. The status quo is very much the twin thing. There's a huge difference between being identical twins and behaving like the same person. You're absolutely right. I'm not sure which part you're saying I need to clear up. Um, between being identical twins, I think you have made it clear that they're identical twins because you mentioned it. I think behaving like the same person, their personalities. I think you just need to make it clear. I think if the theme of it is status quo and desynchronization and it's them changing, there's a huge difference between being identical twins and behaving like the same person. I'm not sure which part you're saying I need to clear because they're saying they're identical and look just alike. Seems pretty clear. Maybe the live reading added to the. I mean, it's possible. It is absolutely possible. Okay, I just want to make sure I was clear on what you were saying. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I want to make sure that that I'm clear on what on your goal and what you're trying to achieve with it. Because you're absolutely right. They're being identical twins and having the same personalities are two different things. And I assume, based off what you were saying, that you want them to be both identical twins and have the same exact personality. And that the transition, the desynchronization, is them realizing that they are different, that things are happening, that they are not actually they're not the exact same like they previously thought that they were the exact same. I think if that clarifies it based off what you were saying about their transition. Mm, yeah, okay, so yes, exactly, the tension is caused by them realizing there's a rift. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so then essentially what I'm saying is you as the writer clarifying that their personalities are the exact same in the beginning. Yeah, Mary, that's actually a really good point. I would think about getting a twin perspective as well, because I think there's a thing here with twins, like a twin thing. Like twins are. I mean, I've never wrote twin characters, so I'm not actually sure how I go about that. But that's actually a good call out as well. Absolutely. Mm. And Eli, also like just to be clear, like I know we're focusing in on the making it clear the twin thing, but once you get to the shower scene and them realizing that that things are changing, and you get to the mirror scene, that's when it really started pulling me into the story. I feel like before that, I was trying to get like the hang of like, okay, these two characters, but once I got that, and then the mirror thing, them standing in front of the mirror and talking personally, and that was just me, that's when I got a little more pulled into it. Oh, perfect. And you see, this is always the great thing with large stories, right? Because this is the beginning of a really large story. Thanks for clarifying that, Eli. I think what you're saying about the represented voice is absolutely valid. I would remind everyone this is just a small part of a much larger narrative, and those tropes will be addressed. Beautiful. And this is the great thing with feedback, right? So when getting feedback for our stories, the things that like obviously we can only speak to the section that we know, right? But this basically as readers at this point in the story, if we're asking the questions that you want us to be asking, then what you're trying to achieve works. If we're asking the wrong questions, then we come back as a writer or as as the writer and the creator, we're like, okay, well, what led them to believe this? And once again, we're just a small excerpt, we're just a small group of people, right? Our opinions are always subjective, which is why we always have to take all like feedback and criticism and through a lens. Absolutely. But thanks for clarifying that though, Eli. I appreciate that. And then we didn't really get into the James thing. We started to, but I felt like there was a interesting story there. Yeah. Yeah, Eli, I think for now, like, I think that's all that I have for you. I feel like there's so much more depth that I would need to do to like hop to really fully analyze this story. and I want to make sure that I can give you the appropriate level of detail and help. So that way you can get the story to the best possible state. I remember that when we went through the first chapter, right? Because you use such a level of detail, which is pretty incredible to really set up your characters. And kind of through reading this and kind of through talking about this as well with you and with the others, I can tell there's a lot of layering here. And especially like there's things that we're saying that literally it sounds like you might be touching upon in like in the next section or the next chapter, right? So these are all really good things. This is really good conversation to have. Let's see. Joanna's arc deals with her being forced to assess the values that have been put on her, and her lesson will highlight the pitfalls of cultural pressure and roles culture gives us. That's interesting. Well, it's a really great theme. That's a really great theme to tackle. Absolutely. Absolutely love that. Awesome. Well, Eli, I definitely went a little over on your timing, but definitely thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you giving us your story, and I look forward to continuing to see. Like, I think what I'm intrigued about right now, if I was just reading through this, I really want to know now how like the twins and how Zekung. I'm so curious to see how those stories interconnect. I'm like so intrigued by this. So really great work so far, Eli. I'm really excited to see how this story evolves. All right. And with that being said, the next one I'm going to hop into, let's see, where are we at? All right, let's see. Bear with me just a second. My system was being funky with me. Give me just a second. I need to pull up. I lost one of my reading pages. Bear with me. Uno momento. Okay. So, let's see. Next up, we got Sean's story. Sean, we're hopping back into Torrent, the thriller horror with Sean and Torrent. Beautiful. Mm. Okay. So, with that being said, Sean, I think I saw you in the chat earlier. We're going to be hopping into yours. So let me pull up your script. Let's see. Torrent. All right, perfect. So let's hop into here. And I got my story all pulled up. Awesome. And it sounds like Sean's interested in changing his title. So if you have, for those of you who've been joining us, you know that we've been going through quite a journey with Miss Summers and the cops. All right, perfect. And let's see, what do we got? Yeah, Sean, that's a great question. It looks like Eli was asking, what is the meaning of the title Torrent? I may have missed that, especially if you're looking for new titles. Mm. And by the way, if you're enjoying the stream, share it with a friend. Tap that share button. The more writers we bring to the community, the more voices, the more feedback, and the more opinions we get to help our storytelling and really make sure that each of the stories can be as impactful as possible. So tap that share button and don't forget to share this with a friend. And don't forget, keep those comments coming because we have had some great comments. I've probably seen some of the most clever comments I've seen so far of the story shows. So we have some absolutely great comments. The top ones and the number one winner will be selected at the end of the stream. All right, and I got Sean's story all set up. We are hopping back into the script. Let's see. It takes place during a torrential rainfall, but tried for a double meaning. Hmm. All right, perfect. So let's see what we got. I think yes, I got highlight time. Okay, perfect. So Torrent by Sean Spence. We are on pages 71 through 77. Interior, Miss Summer's home. Kitchen, night, same day. Brad and Eric sit at the table across from each other. Does pasta and breadsticks sound good, boys? Yes, whatever. There is an uncomfortable silence in the air as Miss Summers begins to prepare the pasta and breadsticks. Thanks again for letting us stay here and making us dinner. You don't have to do that. Oh, pish posh. I wasn't just going to leave you two out there in the rain. And after I fill your bellies, we will contact your parents. You don't have to call our parents. We can call them. I thought your phones died. Miss Summers stops preparing the food and looks over at the boys. A long glare follows. Maybe I should call them now and forego dinner. What's their number? Brad pulls out his phone. Right. I forgot I have to charge my phone. Do you have a charger handy? Oh, you can just call them from my landline if you want. I wish I don't know the actual number. I just use Siri and say, call dad. What? You don't want to call your mother? Our mother's dead. Oh, I am so sorry. That must be hard on you boys. No wonder you want a home-cooked meal. Oh, our dad is a pretty good cook. Mostly leftovers. Well, leftovers were once a delicious first meal, right? I guess. You know, in my day, we had to remember everyone's phone number. And if we didn't, we had to look it up in a phone book. So, do you have a charger? My grandson had one of those fancy phones before he. Miss Summers freezes as if in a trance. Miss Summers? I'm sure he has one in his room somewhere. If you want to check, his room is upstairs, the last room on the right. I'll go check. I'll be back. You know, 4 eyes are better than 2. I'll come with you. But then who is going to help me set the table? The two boys ignore Miss Summers as they climb the staircase. Interior, Miss Summers' home, grandson's bedroom, continuous. The two boys enter the grandson's room and quickly shut the door. They search the room's outlets for a charger already plugged in the wall to no avail. Eric opens the dresser drawers as Brad heads to the nightstand. Brad opens a drawer in the nightstand and finds a phone charger. He plugs it in the wall, attaching the other end to his phone. Eric joins Brad as they watch the no battery symbol flash on the screen, with text below reading, "Phone is findable." There is power, but not enough for the phone to completely turn on. Come on. Brad scopes the room, finally seeing the laptop on the desk. He stands and walks to the desk, his eyes widening as he gets closer. Articles and videos of Billy fill the screen. She knows about Dad. What? Eric leaves the phone on the ground to join Brad. They both glance at the photo of the three of them from an article. I think she knows about all of us. Interior, Billy's car, night, same day. Billy drives to the corner where he previously picked up his car. He pulls over and parks. Exiting the car, he frantically looks for the boys. Brad! Eric! It's Dad! Billy retrieves his phone from his pocket and once again clicks on the Find My app on his phone. Clicking on Brad, the location of Brad's phone has changed. 3025 Bessemer Ave. What? You have got to be fucking kidding! Interior, Miss Summers' home, kitchen, night. Miss Summers watches as the water boils on the stove. Putting the breadsticks in the oven, she hears a knock on the door. Exterior, Miss Summers' home, foyer, continuous. Miss Summers opens the door. Rob stands on the porch with a manila envelope in his hands. Hey, Miss Summers. Rob, I have told you time and time again to call me Cynthia. Sorry, Miss Summers. I can't do that. It just feels weird to call my elders by their first name. I see. I guess we don't know each other that well, do we? That's kind of why I came over here. We just got served a complaint from the cops about us harassing you. Well, to be honest, I know it isn't you, my dear. It's that wife of yours. I have no idea why she doesn't like me. I wouldn't take it personal. She doesn't like me either. Miss Summers chuckles at Rob's deprecating humor. Uh, she she's not that awful. She just has her good days and bad. Don't we all? Why don't you come in out of the rain? I can make us some tea and maybe you and I can figure out how we can make this work. Um, sure. I have a little time. Rob enters as Miss Summers shuts the door behind him. Interior, William's home, night continuous. Sarah watches from the rain-soaked windows. Rob enters Miss Summers' home. What the hell are you doing? And you think I'm the stupid one? Interior, Miss Summers' home, night continuous. Rob walks down the hallway, glancing into the living room. As he passes, taxidermy animals surround a framed certificate and shadow boxes on the mantel. Rob walks into the kitchen with Miss Summers close behind. So, how is the addition to the house coming along? Addition? Yeah, we thought with all the noise that maybe you were adding on to the square foot. Miss Summers picks up the boiling water from the stove and throws the contents onto Rob's face. Oof. Oof. All right, Miss Summers picks up the boiling water from the stove and throws the contents into Rob's face. He bellows out a loud cry before the pot is slammed against his skull. Interior, Miss Summers' home, Granson's bedroom night. Brad and Eric hear a loud commotion downstairs. What what was that? I don't know. I'm scared. I think we should call Dad. This was a stupid idea. Brad looks down at the phone, seeing the same dead battery icon over the pitch black face. We can't. I still don't have a charge on this thing. Boys, could you come down here? The two boys look at each other. Brad unplugs the phone from the charger and grabs Eric's hand. They open the door and head out of the bedroom. Dun dun dun. Oof, man. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's wonderful. That's wonderful, my friend. Wow. So that was, man, that was once again another moment in the script, Sean, where you definitely got me. Like that. Oh God, that moment with just the thought of getting hot water poured in, thrown in your face. Oh, that just no, thank you. But well done, very well done, because that's the effect you want to achieve. For me personally, I'm like, that's always one of those moments that just makes me cringe. That no, thank you. Rob is probably dead, or he's in a coma, or he's heading to the hospital. Oh man, but very well done. Wow, once again, like this was a really well done section. I was very pleased, very very happy with this section. I feel like everything that you set out to achieve with each of the parts worked very well. I would say this is probably, I think it's been over the last couple excerpts, this has the best pacing of the last couple excerpts that I've seen. But it's also, my guess is also because we're hitting we're hitting a major plot point. I can tell because the characters are all converging. So I can tell that it's just it's very clear. The character descriptions are great. The dialogue is great. I know, right? Like that escalated quickly. Sean, it says it takes place during a torrential rainfall, but tried for a double meaning. Yeah, so I mean, I get the torrent for torrential rainfall. But I think without maybe knowing, because I know Eli said I might be too dumb, but I'm not getting the double meaning. No, I think because unless you've read a lot of the script so far, Eli, I think it's just not super clear on what the torrential meaning would be for the script itself. I I understand the torrential downpour, but that's only because we've gone through a good portion of the script now. Okay, so let's see. In the beginning, does pasta and breadsticks sound good, boys? Once again, you do a good job with differentiating Eric and Brad. I think the farther we're getting into this, the more we're kind of seeing Eric and Brad's characters being more distinguished, each one's being more distinct, which is very well done. Perfect. You got Eric as like the younger one who's super nice, and then Brad's like the older, like emo teenager of like, I do what I want. Yeah. And then so Sean, this kind of comes down to you if you want to describe if you're able to describe what the double meeting meant without giving away too much of the plot. I'll try to leave that up to you. But I mean, regardless, Eli, it sounds like Sean's looking for a better title for the story anyways. Sean, I think maybe a good idea would be to like put in what's like the elevator pitch or what's like the one line pitch of it in the comments, and then we could probably help with giving it a better title. That'd be my recommendation. Let's see. Thanks again for letting us stay here and for making us dinner. Yeah, I completely forgot that she was going to make them food. But I mean, like it makes sense. Like I for some reason I probably just forgot from the last section. Let's see. Oh, Pish Pasta, I'm going to leave you two out there in the rain. I think that the whole thing, this Miss Summers, Brad and Eric scene, this is very well done. I think this is my favorite scene of the three of them. Of these three characters, this scene feels the most dynamic and the most natural. And there's a lot of tension between, like, we're almost getting a Hansel and Gretel vibe from this. Sean, I don't know if that was intentional, but I get a full on Hansel and Gretel vibe from this specific scene. Let's see. And I think it's especially because of the food call outs. Maybe I should call them now. Brad pulls out, right? I have to charge my phone. This is the moment with the Siri and the call dad. This is just a good, like, this is so normal for a kid. So normal. Mm, I wish, but I don't know the actual number. I just say Siri, this is clever. This is good. So I think what's interesting is Miss Summers is making conversation, even though she's already done her research about them. And I think then them seeing the computer upstairs, like, okay, so that's interesting. I think, Sean, to have this make even more sense, earlier on in the script, when Miss Summers is researching, you should make it clear that she gets called away from the computer because oh wait, that's when she's looking at the computer, that's before the break-in, isn't it? If I recall correctly, I would say just make sure that when she steps away from the computer, that break-in happens, so it's clear why the computer is left open like that. That would be my recommendation, and make it clear that she leaves it open on the computer. Okay, cool. Cool, that's what I thought. Then if it isn't, it could already be. Make it clear that the computer screen, whatever is left open, or that the computer is like the final image, the final shot of that scene before she steps away from it. So then when they see the computer in this section of the script, it's like, oh shit, because she left it open after the break-in. And clearly she's an old lady. She probably forgot. But this is all good. If you want to check, his room is upstairs. I see why you're going in the trance. My grandson had because she forgot about that the computer was in the room. Okay, I see why you're doing that. Yeah, my grandson had one of those fancy phones before I'm guessing it's assumed that before he died. Mhm. Yeah, okay, so this makes sense why she forgot about the computer. So that's clear. If you want to check, yep. And this is funny. This works very well. This is funny. And the two boys enter the grandson's room. This all works. This is good. About dad. What? Yep, and this is perfect. Just the tension, great flowing. No comments on this scene. Very well done. Yeah, I was kind of wondering that as well. I'm wondering why she trusts them out of her sight. That me too. Actually, Sean, something you could do is what if what if she looks out the window and she sees Rob coming up? Rob's the guy's name, right? Rob. What if she looks out the window and like as they're asking to go upstairs, in this scene, instead of her breaking into a trance, she looks out the window and um out the window shot, Rob is walking by, right? And then that would be like, oh, now she has two problems to contend with. So that would actually make sense why she's needs to just get them out of the way. That would be, yeah, because Mary brought up a good point. Like, why is she so trusting? Why is she not afraid of them like stumbling on a dead body? But I think that would be good. And then you're using basically we already know that Rob's going over there anyways. And the thing was like I did kind of like the thing that Rob was the one knocking on the door in that moment. But I think that could work. Actually, I mean, I think you could do it in a way where you don't actually have to show that it's Rob walking outside the window. It's maybe you could see her do a thing of like, oh, she sees something outside the window. Like she walks to the window and looks out. And then that's why she like gets the boys. Because the tension moment that you have with the Billy scene, this is good. Miss Summers watches the water boil. Yeah, that makes sense. So Miss Summers opens the door. So this is a really good moment because you have the Billy thing here and they're like, oh, okay, Billy's going to be at the house. Oh no, it's Rob. We forgot about Rob. So I think it does work here that Rob is the one and that you build up the tension of like, oh, is it Billy or is it Billy going to be at the door? No, it's Rob. So I think you should still keep it a mystery that it's Rob at the door. Like a viewer who's been paying attention, sure, they can probably guess it, but I think it's still good to not have her for it to not show Rob in the previous scene, but for her to look like that she's seeing something outside the window. I think that would be a really good tension point, and that would resolve that she doesn't trust them out of her sight, but she's distracted. And I think that on top of the thinking about her dead grandson, I think would be enough. And this like Miss Summers and Rob scene is great. Well, to be honest, I know it isn't you, my dear. It's that wife of yours. I have no idea why she doesn't like me. I wouldn't take it personal. She doesn't like me either. And this is perfect. I just really like the Miss Summers laughing, Sarah. And this is great. This scene is great. Sarah watches from the rain-soaked window as Rob enters Miss Summers' house. I actually almost want you to have Sarah knocking and banging on the window. What the hell are you doing? Banging as she bangs on the window. But clearly it's not going to do anything. What the hell are you doing? And you think I'm the stupid one. she's right. Clearly she's right. Rob walks down the hallway, glancing into the living room. Yep. And this is all good. This moment. This moment. Poor Rob. Poor Rob. You already set him up as a punching bag character with the relationship. And you're not expecting Miss Summers to just outright like do that in that moment. Poor Rob. Poor Rob. I'm so sad for Rob's character now. Now Rob's my favorite character. I feel bad for, I mean, it's probably dead, but he was my ex-favorite character. Poor Rob. Oh, poor Rob. I'm going to shed a tear for Rob. Really great work, Sean. Really, really great work. Totally unexpected, but completely within her character, right? So unexpected plot point, but you've done enough setup for her character and for Rob's that it works. Great job. And then the loud commotion downstairs. And then this is good. This is just the transition to the next part. So the boys are going downstairs. Rob's dead or passed out on the floor. We can't assume that a character's dead. I mean, I don't know. Would that kill somebody? Boiling hot water in your face and a crack on the skull. Could go either way. So we have the boys rushing downstairs and Billy rushing to the house. Is technology going to be Miss Summer's undoing? Only time will tell. All right. Well, great work, my friend. Really, really great work. Let's see. What else? Let's see. Let me just hop back into the descriptions. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and it looks like Sean that they agreed with me that was intense. That was an intense section. Um, I like that. Akira meets Blade Runner. I like that cross. Based on my suggestion, Brutal Breadcrumbs. All right, Sean, we got the new title, Brutal Breadcrumbs. with the Hansel and Gretel vibe. I was like, no, okay, I don't think I would make that one. Let's see, I like that, can make it work. Thanks for all the feedback. Let me think. If I were to rename this with what I know about the story now, what would I go with? So for those of you who haven't read through the story so far, or haven't read through the full story with me in the previous episodes, essentially we have the characters of Billy and oh god, why am I blanking on the other name? Clearly I'm not good with names. Billy and the other guy, the two cops. We have the story of the two cops. We have the evil Miss Summers, who's our antagonist. Now, I thought for actually the last couple scenes, you might be setting her up to be not an actual antagonist, but now with the children in this scene, because the children is the cops, Billy's kids. I mean, breadcrumb. I mean that gave me an idea. I mean, not what if you just did breadcrumbs? Breadcrumbs could be an interesting title. Breadcrumbs. Let's see, because thematically it's about to skin an animal. No, I think I'm like thinking through names here. Yeah, Nick. Nick was who I was talking about. I mean, admittedly, a child is wandered in the middle of a movie. I want to know what's going on. Is there like a cabin in the woods vibe with the surveillance? I do love Cabin in the Woods, by the way. Great movie. One of my favorites. But I would say, Eli, that this is more of like less Cabin in the Woods. It's a little bit more like a serial killer. I would say this is a little bit more of like a cop drama, a serial killer vibe. Yeah, I was like, as I'm like thinking about it, yeah, I would say this is more like serial killer cop vibe. But it's with Miss Summers, the little old lady. We're not expecting a little old lady to be our serial killer. Mm. Yeah, I think I could see Seven vibes a little bit, actually. Yeah, I could definitely see Seven vibes a little bit. It's definitely a thriller. It's like it would be a suspense thriller from what we've read so far. Suspense thriller, cop, two cops trying to figure out the mystery of who the serial killer is. And the serial killer seems like a little old lady, but there's a whole thing like because we're what 50 to 60% of the way through the script, so it sounds like there's probably a worse serial killer that might involve a gang potentially, but we're not there yet. So it's a lot of guessing. Mm. But yeah, as I'm like thinking through titles, definitely if any of you have any titles that come to mind, definitely drop them down in the comments below. Like if any like random titles come to mind, whether just from this section or if you've shared in any of the other previous sections, definitely drop title suggestions. I'm kind of curious. That could be a good idea. I think that could work too. Miss Summers walks to the stairs. That could absolutely work. Unless you have the thing of her looking out the window. If she looks out the window, then she's going to distract them and then go to the window or go to the door to open it. Almost like that scene would be like Rob's about to knock and she opens the door. You could do another creepy thing there too. Title idea. And Sean, An Evening with Miss Summers. No, okay, sorry. This one would be too funny. But what if you called it Summer Vacation? All right, Sean, I got your title. Summer Vacation. This is what it is. Sinister. Ooh, I kind of like that one. Sinister Summer. Sinister Summers. Actually, I think I would go Summer, and I would just go Sinister Summer. That's interesting because that uses the what, alliteration. I like that, the double S's. Dark Summer is another one. I like that one. Just throwing that out. Ooh, maybe we got some contenders. Summer Rain, and you're right because that still stays with like the elemental, not the elemental, but the nature vibe that we have going there. Sinister Summer Storm. No, that's too wordy. I mean, that is 3 S's. Sinister Summer. Summer Storms. If you're still trying to keep like the rainy vibe with it. I like that. A dark and stormy summer. Sean, you could totally do that. You could totally do that if you're trying to play off the irony of somebody's like, how is summer dark and stormy? Great ones. By the way, Ken, what's up, my man? Thanks for hopping by the stream, my friend. We literally just wrapped up another really great excerpt of a Sean script. The working title Torrent, clearly soon to be titled. We're helping him with some titles right now. If you're just hopping in the stream, we're just coming up with some titles for Sean's script. We are getting some great title names. I'm loving all the titles that are coming here. Yeah, you guys got a lot. Let's see. Raining Bodies. I was like, well, that one's a little more on the nose. The summer rain has the whole muggy, oppressive, sticky weather too. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Eli. Like that could totally be the vibe. Not to be confused with Raining Men. It's Raining Men. Oh my god. As a theater kid, like that's like one of those songs where like theater kids like always sing that song. Let's see. I don't know how I got here, but that's a cool ass hat, sir. Oh, thank you. Much appreciated, my friend. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Right Now community. We're actually just finished up a reading on our last story, which was like a little horror thriller script. And we've just been coming up with some really fun names for it, actually. Everyone here is super creative, by the way. Neurexis, by the way, if you're a writer, we accept stories from the community. So if you ever need feedback on your story, shoot me an excerpt to Kauffman at the-creative-ghost.com. I am here to help. We're here to help writers improve their stories, one word at a time. Killer Summer, that's another good one. Absolutely. Summer. Ooh, that's a clever wordplay right there. Summer Rain. That one's clever. Sean, you're gonna have a tough time coming up with another title, Sean. You're getting some really good ones. We got like some comedic ones, we got some clever ones, some direct. Like, guys, when Sean's script goes on to win an Academy Award, it started here with the Right Now community. Just saying. If it goes on to win the Cannes Film Festival, Sean, just don't forget us. We're just trying to help with the title. Ooh, I like Boiling Hot Summer is another good one. Blood Red Summer. Ooh, that one makes it feel like we're getting like a horror vibe. Especially that makes it feel like it's going to be like a slasher. This one gives me slasher vibes. Absolutely. I'm loving what you guys are coming up with. I'm so entertained right now. Oh man. Oof. Actually, by the way, thinking of grandmothers, Neurexis, you like totally reminded me. So like you remind me of the hat. And then thinking about grandmothers for this, the reason that I wear the flower on here is because it's an homage to my grandmother who passed away years ago because she was like always like big on flowers. So that was the hat I like because of the style, but this flower specifically is an homage to her. So thank you for asking. That like totally like just came to me. And now as I'm thinking about little old ladies, I'm like, oh, grandmothers. Ah, man. All right, beautiful. So that was great. That was, you guys are coming up with some great names. Keep the names coming. I'm sure like Sean will probably appreciate any and all the names as he's figuring out what the right title is for this script. This was, I think this was the best word storm that we've had as word storm. Blood red monsoon summer. Oh my goodness. Woo! Okay, so as we're hopping into the next reading, Mary, I'm going to be hopping into your story next with Crystal. So we're going to be hopping into your story next, Mary. And by the way, if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. Live writing streams every single day, 190 plus days of consecutive writing live streams, many different segments. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on the other platforms, and you'll be alerted when we go live. And make sure that you're staying tuned for tomorrow and next week. Next week, I'm going to be officially rebranding from Kauffman's Corner to Right Now. The social media brand is going to be changing to the Right Now community. One word, right now, because that is what we're here about. Our goal, our mission is to write now so we can get our stories published and share our stories with the world. So make sure that you come join the community because as you can see from this comments, like everyone here is super creative. Oh my goodness. I love the creativity. I'm also going to be making a big announcement on Monday with the official Right Now rebrand. I have something really cool coming next week. So I'm doing something really cool. It's something brand new that I'm trying. More to come. Make sure you come join us on the Monday stream. I'll be announcing it on all my socials. So, woo, that just like kind of got me thinking since we're all like being super creative right now. All right. All right, I'm going to go back to the 80s right now. Oh my goodness. Penelope, are you going to like start a trend over here? It's going to be like, all right, guys, we're going to go do this right now. Yay, right now. So excited to see the new branding. I know Kauffman's Corner, right here, right now. I know, I like know this. I'm like, right. Maybe like that's the song that I should get. Maybe I should go get maybe I should go pay for the copyright for that song so that way I can play that. That would actually be like 100% perfect. Right here, right now. Lewis, it's a really great, really great recommendation, by the way. Oh man. All right. Well, so clearly I'm excited. For those of you who've known me for beyond the past 6 months, Kauffman's Corner has been my official social media YouTube brand for the past 10 years. As I've like gone through this past 7 months and as I'm looking towards the future and the next chapter of the Right Now journey and my goals and what I want to achieve, Right Now just feels right. It feels perfect. There's some other YouTube channels with the Right Now name, but I feel confident that I can blow up and we as a collective can blow up the Right Now brand because it's clear what it's about. All right, beautiful. So let's hop into, thank you again for that, Sean. That was fun. I think that was one of the best titling brainstorm sessions we've had so far. Okay, so let's, Mary, I got your story queued up. We are returning to the crystals and we're hopping into an action sequence here. I am excited. We get to hop into an action sequence that we've been waiting for. Wonderful. Okay, let me throw it up. All right. So, all right. 20 minutes in the clock. Crystals by Mary Last, chapter 4. Darting between the vendors and surprised townsfolk, Jasper first thought they had been seen stealing, which could result in lost fingers. But the guard had called out their names. How could they know them? Jasper thought he saw Mole by the inn when the guards came out. He wouldn't believe Mole would betray them. Could it be the guards found out who they really were? No, not possible. He pushed away that thought. No time to wonder about that right now. He flew west to the old town. He heard oaths being yelled behind him. Out of the way! King's business! Blast you! Move! Had he taken the time to look back, he would have seen Gareth hindering the guards seemingly by accident, and Mole causing even more commotion, knocking over people and displays. Over the din, no one noticed a ratty old woman laughing. Run, brats! Run! Managing to evade his pursuers, Jasper made it to Old Town. He darted between the decrepit buildings, stopped in a rubble-strewn alley, and squatted down beside some rusty rubbish bins. He hardly noticed the sickening smell of rot. He slowed his breath, but remained on alert. This part of the old town was totally deserted. Only a few rats were nosing around. A totally useless oil street lamp was flickering to his left. The king's guards were not far behind, but far enough for him to chance consulting the orb. He took out the small, clear crystal ball that was hidden in his cloak. As he focused his thoughts on the orb, it warmed just a bit, and a glowing blue mist began to swirl within it. Further and further, he reached in with his mind. He had to know if his sister had made it out to the woods. Dee, where are you? Are you safe? He heard nothing. He could not stop for long and did not want to endanger her by having her orb glow and give away her position. The light of his would attract the guards to this alley soon, so he secured the now clear orb back under his cloak. May the gods protect you, sister. Time to move. Where is the damned thief? The captain of the guard said with a growl. The king wants him and the crystal, if needed. There even is one. Curses on the old crow if she lied to us. His second sighed. How are we to find him? The scoundrel probably knows every inch of this area better than the rats. The captain snapped around. We are the king's guard. What is one measly cur to us? The other guards should have the girl already. We shall search every inch of this area. His second dared to ask, what would two beggars be doing with magic crystals? Just what are they supposed to be anyway? Not our concern, the captain snarled. Now, check down there. Sir, the guard took two men and went to search the alley Jasper had just left. Which way? The captain muttered as he stroked his beard. One of the three remaining guards nearby looked over. Sir? Now, where would a cunning little cockroach go to evade a search? Speaking more to himself, the captain stood for a minute, his eyes dark. Yes, like a rat, perhaps. He sent the guards in search of an entrance to the sewers. As Jasper went west, Danessa took off north and east to the woods. She heard the guards yelling to get more men. By separating and splitting up the guards, at least one man had the chance to escape. Danessa had outrun the guards and disappeared into the woods. Without thinking, she made her feet light as she easily negotiated the uneven ground, roots, and bracken. Every obstacle was moving out of her way. This was another skill her Aunt Gwen had taught her. Since she had played and foraged here as a child, she knew to head for the cave that was their secret hideout. Since she had played and foraged here as a child, she knew to head for the cave that was their secret hideout. Loud trampings and swearing behind her grew faint as she zigzagged between boulders and trees and across the shallow stream. She had to hang onto her pocket to keep from losing her crystal. She looked briefly and saw her crystal glowing a soft purple. Even though she was not directly touching it, her magic was active. Blast these woods! The guards were getting tangled in tendrils of low-hanging mosses. Watch it! One man yelled. Out of my way! Said another. Get up! We can't lose her! A third. Over there! I think she went that way! What kind of tracking did you learn, you fool? This way! Janessa smiled. Using sight, she saw they were following an old deer trail, as other hazards seemed to be still tripping them up and allowed her to rapidly lose them. When she found just the right spot, Dee pushed aside some foliage and squeezed through the narrow opening to the cave. A tangle of vines and branches fell back into place, hiding the entrance. Once far enough in, she breathed a sigh of relief. The wall was rough and damp as she leaned against it. No way they can find me in here. Oh, Jasper, dear brother, please be safe as well. Danessa pulled out her orb and focused. Brother, can you hear me? I'm in the cave. I'm safe. We must meet and plan. Jasper, are you there? Getting no response, she sighed and put the crystal away. She tried to use sight once again to try to find him. She could sense he was not yet caught, but not yet safe. Although he felt the warmth of the orb that signaled D was attempting to contact him, he had no time to answer. At that same moment, Jasper was scampering up a rusted ladder. He knew how the guards thought, as he had been chased more than a few times. He noticed they seemed to never look up. With the buildings in various states of decay, he was sure they wouldn't go far inside them either. Almost all of the inside stairwells had collapsed, so Jasper counted on the guards to only check the ground floors. Up. I've got to keep going up, he thought. There were tenuous rooftop connections between buildings the urchins had set up. He would have to risk using them, or for the rooftops that were close enough to each other, he could jump from one to another. Thankfully, it was now getting dark and overcast. Thunder rumbled off to his right. Under cover of building storm clouds, he knew his shadow would not give him away. He heard the guards stumbling onto another street. He found a broken piece of chair and hurled it. The trick worked. The guards heard the clattering and went to investigate. In the wrong direction. Jasper climbed up and out and went from one roof to another, moving away from those guards. He was just about to climb down, but saw the captain standing by a sewer, opening so that way out was no longer an option. Jasper would have to use stronger magic than he had ever used before to get away altogether, but he wasn't quite sure how. Woo! Oh man, I absolutely love this. I love the acting. Really great work, Mary. I love that. I think the pacing and the overall structure of this scene worked out very, very well. I think for an action sequence, you did a good job of balancing having different characters and different things going on. And I think that was actually done very, very perfectly. I'm very clear that we have like the guards and they're chasing after him. And then you have the captain of the guard trying to command the guards. And then you have them basically chasing after Jasper. And Jasper is basically climbing up. And then you have some other guards chasing after Danessa. And she crawls into, I think, like this type of cave with her crystal, which is interesting. And they're basically believing that Mole betrayed them. You touch on Gareth, which is great. I would say this is a really well done job of setting up an overall narrative with a bunch of different characters and a bunch of different moving pieces, because that's difficult. I think the biggest opportunity is using some character development opportunities for better defining some of the other characters and some of the things that are going on. So let me explain. Let's get into this. Yeah, I know, right? Parkour fantasy free running. I'm like getting the vibe that like Jasper is about to go do some like parkour. I absolutely love. Oh, and like something else I love, Mary, setting up the scenes. Like I love your description of the rooftop thing that Jasper is going to have to go traverse. That was really cool. And I'm like, oh wow, so he's going to have to kind of like traverse, like jump from building to building, and he might die. And there's like this network that the urchin set up. I think that was really cool. I think the cave, I didn't get as much description, but I think the focus was on the crystal, which was fun. I could too. And I think that's what I really appreciated about it. Okay, so let's hop into it. I think the setup was strong. I think overall, Mary, I think one of the opportunities for just grammar, I think there's just some editing opportunities throughout. And that's nothing that's not normal from a first draft. But I think some of the overall descriptions could just be cut down in wordiness. Like, for example, just this first paragraph, it's just a little on the longer side. And the same recommendation I offered for Eli, I would recommend for you as well. Before you give it to somebody to read, so that way we can do these things as cheaply as possible. When you finish the rough draft, do a full reading of it. So I get through the rough draft first. Once you're done with it, do a full reading of it, read through a paragraph and take things out that feel like they're extra words. If they feel like if the paragraph still works without the sentence you take out, then great job. That's how you can kind of figure out what things need to be removed and what things need to stay. If you take out a sentence and it's like, okay, well, thematically, I feel like I'm missing a theme or a dialogue, then obviously it needs to be kept. That's a good strategy when we're doing a self-editing with for ourselves. Okay, so let's go through them. Could the guards be found out who they really were? Push that thought away. I love what you're doing with the interiority. The Jasper, I love that you start out with Jasper. I love it. Jasper, I'm all for it. And then the chapter, we probably didn't get to the end of the chapter, but I know he's like, oh, I love it. The structure of this chapter was great. Very well done. Let's see. Okay, so with the quotes, when the other characters are talking, Mary, one of the things to just keep in mind is whenever a new character speaks, even if it's like that, it's always a new paragraph. There we go. So anytime a new character speaks, it's a new paragraph, even if it's like multiple paragraphs, like you would do it like this. You could still keep this because technically nobody's spoken in this paragraph, but I think from like a structural point of view, it would make sense. He heard oaths being yelled behind him. Actually, I would do it like this. Nope. Yeah, I would do it like this. He heard oaths being yelled behind him. Out of the way, king's business. Blast you move. And then do that. That's how I would frame it. Because every time a new character speaks, new dialogue. Or yeah, new paragraph. Okay, so this is a point of view. This is called what's that? Head. This is called head hopping. So essentially right now, we're in Jasper's point of view, right? So Jasper is our main point of view character. Jasper doesn't know Gareth. Jasper has not been introduced to that character. So we're thinking about, had he taken the time to look back, he would have seen Gareth hindering the guards. But if we're in Jasper's point of view, how is it possible for him to know that that is Gareth? What happens in a moment like this is then it pulls the reader out, because then we're like, oh, that feels like it's the writer is trying to tell us what's happening. So a really good way to go about this, if you want the reader to know that it's Gareth, had he taken the time to look back, he would have seen a tall guard wearing so-and-so, looking like so-and-so. Basically, whatever Gareth's description was, whatever Gareth's number one defining trait was, have that be the defining trait. And then it's a reference. So then the reader thinks like, was that Gareth potentially? But then you kind of leave it as like, oh, it could have been Gareth. Oh, you did. Okay. He does know Gareth. Oh, okay. Perfect. Perfecto. Then never mind. If he does know Gareth, then perfect. Had he taken the time to look back, he would have seen Gareth. Okay, perfect. That's good to know then. Had he taken the time to look back, he would have seen Gareth hindering the guards. Yep. And I think you could actually make that. You can actually foreshadow this a little more. I think instead of framing it like had he taken the time to look back, I think you could make the action more intense by having Jasper. Let's see. I don't need my highlighter. I would do this. Jasper. Let's see. Spun around a cart and narrowly dodged running into an old palace guard as he turned a corner. I think if you make the action of literally Jasper like missing, basically basically within like a few feet of passing by Gareth, I think that ups the stakes a little bit more. And then you do that. Like I would almost have his like action of him literally missing Gareth by like feet. But that's just a subjective suggestion on my part. Jasper spun around and nearly dodged running into an old palace guard, Gareth. And I think had he taken the time to look back, that palace guard was Gareth. Something to that effect. This is just an example. And Mole causing even more commotion, knocking over people in display. Because yeah, so those are that's great. You have so much going on, and I think that actually works because this is an action-based chapter. Actually, I mean, I think that this could work as well. I think either or could work because I think this actually keeps me in the action. Subjective idea over the din noticed a ratty old woman laughing. Run, brats, run. If so then the question would be on the second part. If it's Jasper's point of view and he's running and no one notices her laughing, then how are we hearing this if no one notices it? And this is just a this is just a logistical question. I think this just needs to be rephrased, right? As Jasper ran by, an old woman laughed in the distance. Run, brats, run! Ah ha ha. My guess is you probably don't want Jasper to hear this lady crying, or this lady crying out. But if we're staying in Jasper's point of view, I think you have to do something like maybe like he thought he heard a noise, but it was cut off by Mole knocking over a display. Something to that effect. That would add great tension, but not Gareth. But not Gareth is not a guard. Gareth and Mole are trying to help Jane. Gotcha. Okay, Mole knows now about the crystals, and what Gareth knows is yet to be perfect. Okay, so then that's actually perfect that they're okay. So they're all part of the group. I love that. Then that's actually really good to know. Yeah, and I could tell it was the same old woman, but it's more just a point of a clarity more than anything, and making sure that it's still clear that we're still in Jasper's point of view. And make sure I'm sure you've done this, but just make sure that Old Town is described. I think you've probably done this already, but just make sure it's clear what is Old Town. I love your use of smell. Really great work. Using the other senses outside of what we see is always a great way of showing, not telling. So great work there. I love that. And your description in this chapter is just very well done. I'm absolutely loving the description you're using. And then since it sounds like you've reworked some of the earlier chapters, just make sure with the orb part that you've explained how the orb works. I think I remember from the prologue, but explaining like how they've essentially that you've established how the orb magic works. I'm sure you've probably already done this previously, but that's just a side note of this magic. I like that. This is a good ending. He tries to reach out. He tries to contact her. I'm curious why the orb's not working, or maybe because he tries to talk to her, but she's running, and then she tries to talk to him, but he's running. And I think that's clever. That's fun. My recommendation with this whole guard scene, I want the captain to be more of a character. Since we're making the captain part of this chase, I would recommend further developing the captain and giving the captain a clearer personality. I think it's kind of coming across. It's like starting to, but I would recommend developing the captain earlier in the story. Because I can't remember if the captain was in the tavern scene, but I would just give him a name, give him a name, give him a personality. Because I feel like we're seeing him again, and I think it would make this a little more impactful, especially with them chasing Jasper. The captain ups the stakes because he's a clear character and becomes a clear antagonist. And then like the other guards aren't as important. So like you don't have to develop all of them, but I think the captain would be beneficial to develop. And then you do a good job of the tags. You do a really great job of the speech tags and describing how they're speaking, which is wonderful. My recommendation for this scene is give us a little more action. What are the guards physically doing in this moment that the captain's ordering them? For instance, the captain snapped around. We are the King's Guard. What is our one measly cur to us? He moved forward and smacked the guard in the face. The guard or two of the guards were snickering as he moved forward and smacked the guard in the face. The guard stumbled back and knocked over a stand of things or whatever. But yeah, I would say just give us a little action outside of this dialogue, since we're still kind of in the middle of an action sequence, or just cutting down on the dialogue. Because the only challenge with this is the all the dialogue, this section, it's important because we need to see you want to show the guards, but it's pulling us out of the action of the present moment. So I would recommend cut down on the dialogue section and then add a little bit of action, so that way we feel like the pacing doesn't change. I like that. This is good. Perfect. I kind of had a feeling that the captain was from the tavern. I was actually on the same page. That makes sense. Yep. Completely agree. Description of how the characters move through the world is every obstacle was moving out of her way. That's interesting. This was another skill her Aunt Gwen had taught her. Give me a little more description what this actually means. Are obstacles basically rising? So let's say she's running, there's a cart in front of her, the cart rate floats into the air and moves left. As she's running, the carts slam against the wall. The rocks tumble out of the way. So every obstacle moving out of her way. This is cool. This deserves like its own paragraph because this magic is so intriguing. I would just want to see what is the physical thing that I'm seeing and what objects specifically are being disappear or move. That's interesting. This is good. She's returning to a childhood spot. That's great. And then we go to the crystal magic. That's fun. And then once again, this is just with the guards. Make sure, same thing. Anytime a new character speaks, new sentence or new paragraph. Same thing. You said D here. Is D Janessa? This could have just been like I don't know if D is a nickname or if it was just a typo. But yeah, I was assuming that's Janessa. This is great. Like the way you frame both those moments of Jasper tries to reach out to her, she tries to reach out to him. That was very well done. Very, very well done. And then your whole setup with your whole setup with the rooftops is actually really, really cool. I think the only real opportunity is there's just like some editing to just condense wordiness more than anything. But overall, I have a very clear picture of like, oh, okay, so he's going to try to run to the rooftops, but there's like a system of like roof jumping and probably like ladders and things that's set up by the urchins, and that is so cool. You frame that very, very well. So that's cool. And I think you've set the stakes for what Jasper's about to go to. Yep, and then you're going, that's basically what he's doing. So yeah, I love that. He found a broken piece of churn, hold it, the trick worked. I might just recommend because you spent so much time setting up what this area looks like, give me maybe like a physical description of what does Jasper gets to the top, what does he see? he sees the series of roofs, he sees a broken bridge going from one rooftop to the other. And I think that's why you could like split up this description for the setup for it as he's going up and then what he actually sees, right? And then you want, by describing it as well, you can also up the stakes of what he's about to accomplish, of like, he could die if he miss one wrong step and he dies. So I think that's very fun. Okay, perfect. Awesome. That's good to know. Then that's already established. Beautiful. And Mary, that sort of things. Perfect. And that's all that I got for you, my friend. Really, really great work. Really great work. I would say this by far, Mary, is probably the strongest chapter I've read so far, just in terms of character development, pacing, world building, dialogue, and plot. Strongest chapter I've read so far. So really great work. I absolutely 100% love seeing how your story is evolving. I think it's really, really cool. So thanks for sending it. I'll look forward to hopping into the next excerpt. Awesome. And now, so normally around this time of the stream, I would hop into a writing sprint. I'm actually going to be doing something a little different. So I'm actually going to read a small excerpt of the last section that I've wrote on Last Scarecrow, because it's a huge turning point in the story. Yeah. So for those of you who have not been paying attention to some of my Last Scarecrow stuff, there was a huge Last Scarecrow moment. I'm going to read a small excerpt instead of doing the writing sprint, because I thought that would be fun. All right, so let me pull up mine. As y'all know, I'm 75-80% of the way into Last Scarecrow, and I'm going to read the section that's one of the first major reveals of the climax. I know, right? Instead of writing sprint, I'm going to do a reading of my own work. Like I literally, I clearly I write my stuff on the stream all the time, but I never really read it on the stream. So I'm going to mix it up. Where are we at? 125,000 words. I just have to find the good starting place. And I'm not going to read too much. But as y'all know, so I'm 84%. We have, yeah, I'm not. Yep. Okay. So this is a very short chapter. This isn't going to be too much. Like I said, this is a huge moment in the Last Scarecrow journey. Right now, the Last Scarecrow is facing off against the first demon. Oh my, I had to call out your guys' comments before I start, by the way. This is awesome. Lewis, this is getting me Aladdin's opening chase scenes. I wanted to say the same thing. Mary, that the chase scene with the guards totally reminded me of Aladdin. I was totally expecting one of the guards to call Jasper a sewer rat. I think he calls him like a rat or something like that. But the same thing that they call Aladdin. I totally got that same vibe. Jared changing it. You know what? Every once in a while. Eli, I have a question about the writing coaching stuff. What should I include in my initial email? Like, what would you consider consultation level versus sending you everything I have? Like, it's free. So Eli, that's a great question. It really comes down to what your goals are. If writing coaching works best for writers who are still either early on or in the middle of a rough draft and are still working on their story. Essentially, basically, the way coaching works out, and I'll explain this before I go into my Last Scarecrow. The way coaching works out is some client can purchase however many hours of coaching that they need. The coaching is then turned into writing credits. Those credits are then deducted for however much time I spend working on their stuff. Usually it works best when writers will send me like excerpts of their work, and I can give feedback for their work through either emails, or they can also apply it towards like development sessions where we're like brainstorming and talking through strategies about the story. That's basically where coaching works the best in. Coaching works best if you need feedback as you're in the middle of an early draft of the story, Or if you still need help developing or brainstorming a greater thing, that's when coaching works best. If you already have a full draft of a story and you need feedback on it, and let's say you just need like early feedback, like, hey, I just want you to read through it. I need your opinion. Similar to what I do here on the stream, I would recommend alpha beta reading. If you need me to read through a full draft and you want me to like type out like actual comments and do more of a deep dive, well, that's not, that would be a little bit more on the editing side of it. Now, the way I frame it is I think about how much time is it going to take me to go through it. That's why I always have to balance the word count with the amount of time it takes me. If I'm doing an alpha beta reading through 100,000 word story is going to be much faster than me having to do a full edit. Editing 100,000 word story takes me twice as long as doing an alpha beta reading, because I can just read through it and give my opinion, as compared to read through it, take notes, read through it, leave comments, read through it, fix edits, right? So it's just really the time. It's really just the amount of time. So Eli, what I would recommend, yeah, I'm very much in that phase of my project. Yeah, so Eli, what I would recommend is just shoot me an email. Why don't you just show and you can just tell me like where you're at in your project specifically right now. Let's see, my main focus at this point is getting some feedback guidance on constructing the character arcs I have in mind for the main secondary characters and weaving them together. Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like coaching is probably what you would do. So Eli, so do this. So send me an email. Tell me basically where you're at in the story. Basically, how much you have written, how much you have written, and then what your end goal is for it. And then tell me what you're looking for out of coaching. Just reiterate those points. And then I'll tell you basically how much time I think it's going to take. Start off with buying like a couple hours. You can try it out, see how you feel. And basically we'll talk through all the things and we'll basically work out what you're trying to talk through, whether that's through emails or whether that's through like Zoom calls, whatever is works best for you. So that's essentially the way that coaching boils down to. I hope that helps. That'd be super awesome. You know, I love your story, so I would definitely love to dig into it. Yeah, and I think we could. My gut, Eli is telling me that literally we probably just need to hop onto a call. We probably need to hop into like a development session onto a call for like anywhere between 1 to 2 hours, maybe 1 to 3 hours, depending on how much you want to talk through, and literally just talk through all the things. And then you can make notes. That would probably be the cheapest way for you. And then give you a clear plan and then give you insight as you're developing it. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, Jared Hay. Worst story I have ever read in my entire life. I read WTC's story and then I fell asleep. No, okay, I'm kidding. Oh my god, WTC, you had a great story. I remember with your story, you gave us a section, but there was like a huge like cultural thing that I just wasn't aware of. I feel like for me, like with your story, WTC, I feel for me like I need to either reread it or read a different section. Oh man. When with my critiques on my life feedbacks, I generally feel really good. I feel like I've gotten to a good point where I can generally give great feedback during a live reading. That's not always the case. Sometimes I have misses, and that's all right. It's a learning experience. But after what today is episode 22. So after 21 episodes of the show, 3 hours a piece. So that's 22 times 3 hours is 20, 40, 60. So after about 70 hours of reading writers' stories, 22 shows, there's probably about roughly about 5 stories a show, 22. So after about 70 hours of reading live stories and about 100 to 130 stories of doing a live reading and critique, I've refined the process, but it's not always perfect. So it happens. That's why I always recommend like if for writers who need like more deep dives and more help, go into my coaching services because I can actually go more in depth for things and it's easier. It's always like 10 times easier to read through something when I'm not in the spotlight. Let's see. You're welcome. You're welcome, Mary. By the way, I got a crystal power based magic system in my story too. You guys know that actually, Mary, the first story I ever wrote in my entire life, my first like epic fantasy story was called The Crystals. That was like my first like 10 notebook worth story. It was called The Crystals. I think there's a reason we found each other, Mary. We were all meant to build crystal magic based stories. Okay, sweet. I'll shoot you an email with the details and synopsis, and we'll have at least a bullet points to go from. Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. I'll be on the lookout for it, Eli. Thank you. Let's see. Well, it may be nice and send you a copy of ebook so you can read it like you're doing the Fourth Wing. Ooh, that'd be exciting. I'm yeah, I'm thinking through the story time segment and I might like adjust it. I felt like this last story time section was a little on the slower side. So I keep playing around with story time of like what the goal of it is and whether I want to read through full book, whether I read sections of popular books, whether I do bestsellers, whether I do classics. I'm still playing around with different formats on it. But absolutely, that'd be super cool. Okay, without further ado, the last Scarecrow. So chapter 49, the last monument. Oh yeah, I guess I should frame where I'm actually at. First demon and last Scarecrow are fighting. First demon killed the last Scarecrow's friends, Pebble and Gore. They were on the last island that they were all fighting on. The first demon basically sent it into oblivion. The last Scarecrow and the first demon have been fighting. They are basically in an abandoned skyscraper, which is like the remnants of the Age of Creators. They basically were fighting on the ground floor. They hopped onto a metal box. That Scarecrow tried to jump in. The metal box was the remnants of an elevator that shot them to the very top. And that is where we find ourselves as they are having this epic fight. Okay. Chapter 49, the last monument. The last monument, fitting for the end, the demon announced as he somersaulted onto a precarious ledge, which looked like it might crumble at any moment. Scarecrow dragged himself out of the metal container, steadying himself from the quick ascent to the creator home's peak. He pushed himself onto one knee, still feeling the gaping hole in his side from the demon's onslaught. Everything that came out of this demon's mouth only brought about more questions. Before he even had a chance to speak, the demon craned his head. A single burning ember glowed through the icelet of the red mask. The last Scarecrow? Or is it the last straw man? The demon rolled off the ledge onto the ground, breaking into a fit of hysterical laughter, as if its earlier outburst of anger had all but ceased to exist. Every word you utter brings more questions, Scarecrow shouted, his anger growing as he stood up. I don't know you. He picked his hat up off the ground, placing it back on his head. I don't understand this world. Feeling his anger burning hotter, he approached one slow footstep at a time across the wide building top, the size of a small room. I am just a dumb Scarecrow. Remaining on the ground, the demon craned its neck towards him. Forgetful straw man, the laughter continued as the demon looked up into the air beyond him. Nothingness, not forgetful. Scarecrow's fist tightened, nearly on top of the demon. He saw those burning red eyes were actually a bright shade of blue beyond that mask. The demon made a spitting sound, mocking him once more. Scarecrow tried to hold himself back. Crow, Pixie, and Grizzly, not forgetful, it whispered sweetly. Ah! Scarecrow brought his fist down upon the demon's unprotected chest, but met only with the ground as the demon rolled over. Scarecrow's fist pulsated from the shock, but it was nothing compared to the loss he felt. The demon made another spitting noise, and again Scarecrow followed with a punch, only to miss again. The demon flipped into the air, landing behind him. Poor damsel straw man, helpless while friends die. That's not true, Scarecrow screamed as he rushed after the demon, swinging unsuccessfully again and again, the demon dodging each punch with ease, either by flipping away or moving aside. Scarecrow trailed off with an unending series of thrusts and punches, trying to ignore the truth of the demon's words. Scarecrow followed up another punch with a kick, which the demon easily sidestepped and hopped up using his head as a stepping stone and kicking him to the ground. Scarecrow slid forward a ways, his head peeking at the ledge. He pushed himself up, but the demon landed on his back, holding his head to look forward. Eastern monuments, my world. The Scarecrow tried moving, but was held in place as he gazed upon the darkening lands of the Eastern Monument for as far as he could see. The lands were as black and hollow as the treacherous storm clouds above them. Blackened and charred nature was interrupted intermittently by the ruins of an era long gone. The only true light came from the area in the demon's domain. Far below, Scarecrow felt tears as he gazed down at the lake of magma, where the islands had all but fallen, along with... He raged on the inside as he held the demon's attention with his eyes. So what? Did you destroy all those lands too? The demon raised him up into the air by the back of his head, forcing him to view the other lands in the distance. Far beyond the islands and mountains, the charred half of the nest faced them like a speck in the distance. But even from here, its magnitude as it disappeared in the clouds was a lot. Beyond the nest lay the darkened valleys, and beyond that, the worlds of the flatlands, in which the Colosseum must be somewhere beyond, and even farther in the next direction lie forests and deserts as far as his eyes could see. He took it all in, waiting for his chance. Your lands, your doing, the demon whispered creepily into his ear. Your riddles make no sense, Scarecrow roared, as both of his arms had dislodged themselves and circled behind the demon. One gripped the demon's neck, while the other grabbed its legs. The demon let go of Scarecrow's head as he fell onto the ground. Scarecrow focused with all of his might on tossing the demon off the skyscraper, and his hands did just that, tossing the demon like a sack through the air and over the ledge. Now, lying on his face, Scarecrow couldn't see the outcome until both of his arms relodged themselves back into their sockets. He pushed himself off the ground. His jaw dropped, shocked at what he saw. The first demon stood in midair, just beyond the building, as if he were standing on solid ground. Sneaky strawman, tag, you're it! The demon ran away, spit out again from beneath his mask. This taunting the Scarecrow once more, as he hopped from side to side, playing with the bone staff, as if he were waiting for Scarecrow to come out after him. Still trying to catch his breath, Scarecrow rose to his feet, walked, and peered over the ledge at the long drop towards the lake of magma far below. He looked up into the dark rain-filled storm clouds above, begging for strength to not be afraid. He'd come too far. None of this made sense, but... He gulped. Everyone was gone. It was up to him. Let go of fear, he whispered. Crows scare not at the unknown, they crow back. Crow's words echoed in his mind. Dumb Scarecrow, how are you going to stop Demon Face if you're always afraid? Pebble's words echoed in his mind. I may be the last grizzly, my friend, but we are never alone. Gore's words echoed in his mind. Scarecrow gripped the ledge and flung himself into the air, expecting the worst. He landed with a dull thud on hard ground as the world shimmered around him. They were on another island, only this one was mere feet off the ground, surrounded by the lake of magma. Decayed ruins slowly burned as they sunk within its depths, and the rest of other landmasses, most likely the islands, burned slowly but surely. He felt the ground around him. It felt real. How could it be? Scarecrow looked up at the demon. It finally clicked. He pointed at the demon who sat on the ground casually without a care in the world. Illusion magic! That's what you do! Ever since I entered this realm, none of it made sense. The skeletons, the shadows, the islands, the fighting, all of it is fake. Scarecrow scratched his face confused. Or is it? He ran at the demon. Is any of it real? Are my friends really dead? He sprinted even faster. Is the nothingness real? He dove at the first demon who simply sat there waiting, watching. What purpose? Scarecrow screamed as he soared through the air, hands outstretched, reaching for the demon. What are you? He collided with the demon as they tumbled forward to the edge of the island, the heat and intensity of the nearby lava making him sweat. Or maybe that wasn't real either. Scarecrow breathed rapidly, intensely, the demon lying on his back, face up at him. Why wasn't it fighting? Why? Scarecrow reached down, his fingers moving forward cautiously as he grabbed the demon's red burning mask and flung it back in the air. The demon's mask and horns spiraled, landing in the lava nearby. Looking up at him, You're no demon. Scarecrow trailed off horrified. Last human. The crazed, childish, pale, blue-eyed face looked up at him. He had to know the truth. He had to know. Why? With the hand raised into the air, the last Scarecrow pulled out his real attack, knowing this might be his only shot. His hand shot down, grabbing its forehead as he screamed, "Remember!" A beam of light shot forth from the heavens, engulfing them both as the world turned pitch white around them. Chapter 50, The Last Human. Woo! All right. That's it. That's the reading. Oh, man. That's the, wow. I feel like that. So that's the first time that I've read it since I wrote it. Man, how do I feel about it? There's a lot of aspects that I actually really like about what I created, right? It's intense. Right? I'm like, but I mean it's supposed to, right? We're at the climax. We're at the climax scene, and that's the first of a couple big reveals. That's the first of a couple of them. I was like reading it. I'm overall, I'm really happy with how it came out. I'm really happy. I think I got the vibe and the intensity right. I think I got the drama that I was going for. Obviously, like I feel like there's a lot of parts that I need to edit down and clean up, but that's like to be expected from a rough draft. I think if I'm thinking of it critically myself and I'm thinking about like what do I need to fix, I need to clean up some of the descriptions so it doesn't pull it out of the present moment as much. I need to clean up some of the foreshadowing with the dialogue so it's not as overt with the first demon. I really liked I like the demon's taunting. I'm playing around with different styles for the demon. Critique. Shame the demon wasn't revealed to be Dorothy, having lost her memory and corrupted by the evil witches. Right? You're like, oof. Right? You guessed it. But then the real question is who is the demon? Right? Shame the demon wasn't revealed to be Dorothy, having lost her memory and corrupted by the evil witches. That would be something, wouldn't it? Right? As if this was like a spiritual successor to the Wizard of Oz. There's a lot of elements that it is this. There is a lot of elements that it's a modernized retelling to an extent. But that's interesting. It's interesting. Maybe you've figured out the next plot point. Yeah, but overall I'm happy with it. I really liked Toto. I know, where's Toto? I was like, I think the closest thing I have to Toto in this story is probably either Crow, and then maybe by default, yeah, I'd say Crow is probably the closest to a Toto type character. Actually, in the first half of the story, Crow is kind of just like kooky. But I think what I like now that I'm actually reading it aloud, I have to make the demons quote. I need to have the demons dialogue make sure that it makes sense to the reader. So I now have to clean up the demons dialogue. I really loved his moment with remembering his friend's last words. I think that was powerful. I was really happy about that. That I was really happy about. I was a fan of that. Just the way it came across during a reading. I like the reveal of illusion magic. I think I need to clean up what I actually want to call it. I don't think I actually want to call it illusion magic. But I know that's the gist. But I know that I like that reveal because the last, like, ever since the Scarecrow entered the first demon's domain, it's been nothing but like fighting with like random creatures and islands and a bunch of just crazy stuff going on. So I think that was definitely really good. And then we're touching upon the nothingness, which is the real magic that the demon uses. And then the reveal that the demon is actually the last human. Like that I was happy about. I think I want to reword this. I might reframe this instead of the demon talking. Scarecrow trailed off horrified. I also like kind of think about how I would better frame this. I think it would be a more hard hitting. You're no demon. Scarecrow trailed off, horrified. Lying beneath him. Lying beneath him. Pinned beneath him. Pinned beneath him was no horns, no demonic lines or curvatures. Pinned beneath him was pale, was the crazed, childish, pale, blue-eyed face of a creator. I could see that, Mary. That's good feedback. The friends coming to mind was great, but repetitious. Maybe one by one, you heard their wise words. Interesting. You know, that is actually a good point. That might actually could make it prove it to be more effective of spreading out his friends' last words throughout their that part of the fight. That's a really great recommendation. Thank you. And then I'm happy with how the ending for this came out, because then that's literally him realizing that the demon is a human, and then chapter 50 is the last human. So we're going to get another big reveal in the next chapter. Oh, I'm so happy with it. I am absolutely in love with it. Even though it's like, I know there's like work to be done, I'm just happy with how it turned out. Awesome. Thanks for listening in, my friends. Y'all are the select ones who get to who have gone to experience one of the first major big reveals of the climax. So like, I've been waiting for so long to write that. When I wrote it last week, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy. I finally got to write this moment, which I've been like leading up to for a while. Dream weaving, mirror magic, illusory magic. Those are some really interesting terms. I think what I'm going to do, dreamweaving is an interesting one. With the magical system in the world, the truth is I've developed Scarecrow's magic very, very well. I know exactly what Scarecrow's ability does, but I think I need a better define the demon's magic. Well, I do know that it's illusion based. I need to actually take it into a deep dive and actually define the outlines, the limit, the max and the min of it, along with the nothingness, because the nothingness is a whole other type of magic that's separate. So yeah, but those are some really great choices. I think I need to better define it and then name it. Phantasmal warping. Ooh, that's kind of cool. That's actually kind of cool. I like that concept. That's super cool. Phantasmal warping. That's a great name. Absolutely some great names. Thank you for sharing those. As I think about like, what do I actually want it to call? I think when I think about it, so when I try to think of a name, I ask myself, what is the experience that I want the reader to have? I want the reader to recognize that it is a form of illusion magic. I don't want to call it illusion magic, but I don't actually think I want to call it magic either. But for me to fully give it a real name that feels like it makes sense, I have to make sure that I'm crystal clear on the minimum and maximum of the magic system. And fatal flaw. Like, what's the fatal flaw of the illusion magic? There actually is a fatal flaw of the demon's magic. And that's once again, that's another reveal that's coming. Phantasmancy, Veil Weaving, Spectral Arts, Shadowmancy. Those are some absolutely great names. I definitely am. I'm definitely saving some of the names. I really appreciate them, WTC. You're awesome. Oh man, yeah, I'm definitely saving them, and then I'll probably give it a more of a logistical name when I go into the second draft. That's definitely been super helpful. I also, and you know what's interesting, WTC, since you're with you made the comment on the Dorothy bit. Where was it? Shame the Demon. So you said this comment, Shame the Demon wasn't revealed to be Dorothy, having lost her memory and corrupted by the evil witches. There's an element there. As I've been working on the story, I've been asking myself, how many references do I want to make to Wizard of Oz, and how much undertones? And there's without revealing what one of the reveals that are coming up, there was a huge plot line there that I had actually that I had considered when I was developing the demons, when I was developing the demons character. So that's actually really interesting you picked up on that. But yeah, I've once again been asking myself, like, when I start advertising and packaging this story, do I keep going back and forth on how much I write and advertise with elements of the Wizard of Oz, and how much I try to make it its own thing. And I'm kind of going back and forth. I go back and forth on how much references of Wizard of Oz to make. Right now in this first draft, there's been like a very, very like, I made like a couple here and there, but nothing major. But there's just so much. And sometimes it feels like it could be like a spiritual, like a modern retelling. And then at other points, it's a completely different type of universe. So, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of elements there. Great ideas, my friend. Awesome. And now with that, I appreciate you guys. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for the comments and the ideas. That is awesome. More to come. I'll obviously continue on my writing sprints tomorrow. Oh no, actually tomorrow will be the free write since it's the podcast. I won't even get to continue on Last Scarecrow till probably Monday. But this brings us to this part of the stream, the comment of the day game. Okay, so I just have to make sure I didn't miss. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any comments from the last section of the stream. Okay, so oh my god, you guys have literally so many comments. You guys are making like today. This is going to be really hard. Okay, so I think. All right, so let's review. Oh man. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to show all the comments that have made it to the finals. Oh my god. Okay, so I'm going to not show. There's so many. I think I've highlighted like 30 comments. Okay, so for those of you who've been dropping comments throughout the stream, the comment of the day game, I'm judging the winning comments on 3 things: cleverness, comedic element, and how much they have provided value to helping a writer, right? So one of the 3 things, or not one, the combination of those 3. That's basically how I'm judging it. Yeah, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to just highlight a number of comments that stood out to me, and then I'll narrow it down to a final 3. Let's see. So starting from the top, Vaughn had a great one, fight fire with fire and everything else. Let's see. Your alliteration, such a diverse display of delightful, delicate, detailed descriptions. Let's see. And this is a great feedback one that I loved. My wife found success on it with some of her serials in the beginning when it first started, but when Amazon changed their compensation structure, a lot of authors dropped off the platform. That's very helpful. It's good to know. Penelope has made me laugh. I have no idea what darkening gold eyes is. What darkening gold eyes is either. Hashtag editing. Let's see. WTC, loud growls erupted from the audience with claws and gleaming fangs. LOL, ghost tomatoes. When life gives you tomatoes, make ketchup. Let's see. Quote, her body was a symphony of desire, and he was a willing listener to her melody. Ooh, haunting. Lewis, the violin in her veins played on the heartstrings. Ooh. Mary, if you love something, set it free. WTC, the winning the chat. I was like, WTC. I was like, what does WTC stands for? It stands for winning the chat. WTC, Lewis is helping you out with your acronyms here. Let's see. I will send over my 700,000 word story for you then. LOL. I was like, that made me laugh. Let's see. Based on Kauffman's suggestion, brutal breadcrumbs. And then we had so many names. Your guys' names were clever. Dark Summer, Sinister Summers, A Dark and Stormy Summer, Killer Summer, Summer Rain, Blood Red Summer, and of course your Phantasmancy, Veil Weaving, Spectral Arts, Shadowmancy. Very clever ideas. This is getting me Aladdin's opening chase scene. And then, of course, Lewis's right here, right now, right here, right now. So those are the comments that stood out. Let's narrow it down to top 3. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let me narrow down to top 3. God, you guys made this very difficult. Like, you guys, this has 100% been one of the best comment of the day games. Like, your guys' quotes and comments today were pretty incredible. Let's see. Okay. All right. So I think I've narrowed it down to underneath 10. Oh man, this is hard. This is really hard. Okay. Wow. Okay. I've narrowed it down to man. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. I've narrowed it down to 5. Oh my goodness. All right. Let's go. Okay. All right. And I think I've got it. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh my. All right, guys. You guys made this very difficult. You made this very, very difficult. So I'm going to list the top ones and let's see what we got. All right. Coming in number 3, because this is just an incredible quote, and I completely agree in this mentality. Coming in 3rd place, I am awarding Mary. If you love something, set it free. I guess I probably deserves a round of applause. Coming in 3rd. Woo! All right, so that's coming in number 3. And then coming in 2nd. Oof. This is a hard one. All right, coming in 2nd is going to be because this one was the most apt of the names that I saw for the script. I think I award the 2nd place to Lewis, Sinister Summers. That felt the most appropriate for the script, for what Sean is trying to achieve with his previously titled Torrent. We'll see what he picks, but that is the name I would have chosen if that was a story that I was working on. So, Lewis, you get spot number 2. Numbers 2 goes to Lewis. And coming in 1st place, because this one I think we can all agree is this one wins based on the cleverness of it, based on a little less the comedic, but it's just the cleverness and the word choice. I think this needs to be a quote. And I come in 1st place for WTC, the quote. Her body was a symphony of desire, and he was a willing listener to her melody. Absolutely amazing quote. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Really, really great work, my friends. I had so much fun. You guys made that difficult. That was hard. That was so hard. You guys were like talking while I was trying to 7 days later. I almost got it, Jared 2024. Well, this is what happens when I got like 30 comments and I don't have an admin. I know, I got to figure out how to speed up the process. Oh man, great work, my friends. You guys, those were awesome. So all of you know, I want to say we have about 5 winners so far out of the past couple shows. The tool that I'm creating for the community, it's still in development. I got about halfway through it and I realized that I just didn't like it wasn't coming out the way I intended. So I went back to the drawing board. I'm refining what I'm putting together. But in the meantime, I'm launching something super exciting. Make sure you tune into Monday's stream because I'm going to be revealing it. It's going to be in conjunction with the Right Now rebrand, with me rebranding the Right Now, my social media brand, starting on Monday. So more to come on Monday. Stay tuned. We'll be here. And now as we hit this last part of the stream, make sure that you come back and join tomorrow. Because tomorrow is the Create Right Now podcast episode of how to publish your book with a successful writing collaboration. I am sitting down and chatting with 2 very, very awesome authors. I want to make sure I'm saying their names correctly. I will be sitting down with authors Rachel D. Adams and Dawn McClellan as we really discuss what is their unique method. And they have a really unique method, which I actually absolutely love, to telling engaging stories. They have multiple stories published, and they have been a writing collaboration duo for nearly 20 years. So absolutely incredible. We're going to have a great episode. It's tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. So make sure that you don't miss out. It's going to be a great episode, and it marks episode number 10 of the Create Right Now podcast. It's going to be a great one. So definitely it will be great. Yep. One is my wife, Rachel. And once again, thank you for the connect. This is going to be a really cool podcast, my friend. And if you're looking for something to watch next, down in the YouTube description is the Reading Sprints for Storytellers. It highlights some of our most popular story and critique shows. So definitely go check it out. If you want some more storytelling action, if you missed out on previous episodes, linked down in the YouTube description below. And don't forget, like the stream on your way out. Let me know that you got value out of this stream. Help us show the algorithms that writing streams are cool. And that, my friends, is all that I got for you today. Don't forget, words are winds. Words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.